not replace Nixle and or Code Red. It actually supplements them, and it makes those tools more powerful because you'll know what zones are being evacuated or which ones are being placed on advisory. And as a result, you won't have to do anything else other than listen to those messages and know if it's time to go.
Even if you don't have internet, this could be done by word of mouth, it can be done by radio, or it could be us driving down the street, so please know your zone.
From Truckee to Lake of the Pines, from Chicago Park to Spenceville. Every single square mile of Nevada County has a zone. And having a zone that you know for your neighborhood is going to help you save time to be able to evacuate and keep you and your family safe.
Ready Nevada County is an education campaign designed to help the public have successful outcomes during emergency events. We really focus on a whole host of disasters or emergency events. We want to have a broad spectrum. We want to be prepared for anything, but really we focus a lot on wildfire because we know that's one of the most likely events to happen in Nevada County.
Ready, Set, Go is really built around the wildfire premise to prepare residents to be ready before an event, to move into the set posture when there's a red flag or a fire is near you, and then to go when it's time to go.
Essentially, in its simplest form, it's a three-tiered
Nevada County Planning Commission, February 26th. And let's start with the pledge to the flag, if you'd like to lead us. Okay, how about roll call?
Commissioner French,
Present.
Commissioner Foley,
Present.
Commissioner McAteer,
Present.
Commissioner Garst,
Here.
and Chair Millman.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any corrections to today's agenda?
No corrections, Chair.
Thank you. All right. So now we are moving to public comment. And this is public comment on any items that are not on today's agenda. So if anybody would like to approach, you'll have 3 minutes. Okay, we'll close that. I don't see anybody approaching. So moving on from that, we do not have any commission business today. But we do have the approval of the past two meetings, the minutes.
I'll move adoption of the minutes.
I'll second.
How do you vote, Commissioner French?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Aye.
Commissioner McAteer?
Aye.
Commissioner Garst?
Aye.
And Chair Millman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Which brings us to our public hearing that everybody's been waiting for today. At this point, we'll go ahead and turn this over to planning staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. With me is David Nicholas, Associate Planner on our office, and he'll be giving you a staff report to go over the proposed amendments to the ordinance. I'll turn it over to David.
Hello, Planning Commissioners and members of the public. This presentation before you today is about proposed amendments to the Nevada County Communication Towers and Facilities Ordinance. So we're just going to go through an outline real quick here. In this presentation, I'm going to talk a bit about the background of the proposed Communication Tower Ordinance Amendment and how it came to be, a list of some of the proposed amendments to the ordinance, and some information about some of the reasoning for some of those proposed amendments. I'll also discuss some information about community engagement, notification, and coordination. I'll discuss a memo regarding comments that we received after the release of the staff report, and also some minor ordinance revisions that we're proposing after the ordinance was released. I'm going to talk about the project's alignment with the procedures of the California Environmental Quality Act, and finally I'll provide a staff recommendation for the Planning Commission. So this process began when the Plan Department was directed by the Nevada County Board of Supervisors to update our communication facility and tower ordinance to align it with modern standards to reduce the impact of communication facilities while also promoting the board objectives to expand broadband services. It's really, what we've developed is really meant to be a balance between the feasible development of cell phone towers and developing a network and having the regulations to allow a modern network, while also addressing the concerns of members of the community. These amendments strengthen the existing regulation we have, which was last adopted 20 years ago in May of 2026. It enhances the compatibility with the adjacent land uses while also keeping in mind compliance with FCC requirements. The CTFO, Communication Towers and Facility Ordinance, is also integrated into the rest of the county code, which will continue to apply when the county is reviewing communication towers. So things in the rest of our development code and our site development standards, like our noise ordinance, natural resource protection, and things like that will continue to apply, while also other regulations like the building department building code, environmental health requirements for the storage of hazardous materials, and the fire marshal's requirements for the defensible space and access to these towers. So these are all outside of this communication tower ordinance, and it's going to maintain that we're going to keep enforcing these standards, but we're just not trying to duplicate that existing framework. And this ordinance is more specific to these communication towers. So now I'll start going through some of the proposed ordinance amendments. We've updated the stated purposes of the ordinance. We also updated the county definitions and added some new definitions to align with FCC standards. Those FCC standards would are federal law, which has supremacy over our laws anyways. So just aligning it is more for clarification, just so there's no confusion when we're trying to follow a specific procedure for one of these different types of facilities. We're also proposing a few exemptions. One of those would be small cell wireless facilities. These are anticipated to be a low impact way to have a reliable modern network while also minimizing impacts and still being cognizant of the community's concerns. Under the federal law, the antenna of a small cell has to be less than 3 cubic feet, which is about the size of a transformer on a power pole. So we're not anticipating much more aesthetic impact than the equipment on power poles already have. It's also required by federal law that the small cells have to be less than 28 cubic feet, which is about half the size of a telephone booth, or pretty similar to the existing utility cabinets we see in those utility right-of-ways. Some other exemptions we're proposing is the replacement of existing equipment with similar equipment. This is something that's already been exempt, but we're just clarifying it in the code. Something else that's already exempt, but just a simple clarification, is that facilities that are exempted by the state and federal government would also be exempted by the local government. And we're clarifying that over-the-air reception devices, OTARDs, which are basically like residential satellite dishes, something less than a meter in diameter, would be exempted as well. And even if we wanted to, we couldn't regulate those because the FCC does have a rule that prohibits HOAs and local governments and different entities from regulating consumer and residential electronics like that. We're also looking at some provisions for emergency deployments. These would be things like cells on wheels. These are like a truck or a trailer that is wheeled in during an emergency. During the Pacific Palisades fire, there's some aloft photos of cells on wheels from AT&T and Verizon, just to provide that increased capacity if any cells were damaged or if there needs to be more people calling to coordinate or work with first responders or something like that. And we would require that the cells on wheels be approved by the planning director before they could be implemented. We're also looking into removing the land use entitlement for emergency standby generators. We would still review them during the building permit process, so we would make sure that they would be meeting setbacks and noise standards and things like that. But the reason we're looking into this is because the state has a 10-day shot clock for the initial review of a emergency generator, and so just doing all the review during the building permit process makes it a lot easier to meet those shot clocks, and it's still essentially the same review. Based off of public comments that we've received during other communication tower hearings and also during the initial workshop in March of 2025, and also just things that staff has found to be useful information while reviewing these projects, has been reflected by us updating some of our application requirements. These things are a more robust justification for what the facilities are going to do to improve the network, more specified criteria for the visual impact analysis of a proposed tower, alternative site analysis, and another thing we're looking into doing is we've heard concerns from the public that they weren't notified earlier of a communication tower. So what we're proposing is that before a cell company even applies to the county, they have to notify all the neighbors within 1,000 feet, and with their application, provide some sort of demonstration that they've done that. So that way, the neighbors are actually noticed before we are. We're looking into codifying a requirement for radio frequency exposure reports. Currently, we require that with an application checklist, but we'd like to move that into the code. And for some of the criteria of that RF exposure report, we've actually used some of the language from the members of the community. Another application requirement is defensible space shown on site plans. And this was a recommendation from the fire marshal of the Truckee Fire Protection District. So we're going to move on to some more ordinance amendments. The term or the concealment standard of effectively unnoticeable is proposed to be updated to effectively concealed. And that's just to clarify, we're not trying to make these towers completely invisible, but we're looking to have them blend in with the natural and built environment to kind of mitigate those aesthetic impacts, but not completely hide them where they're all the way invisible. Another thing we've looked into is enhancing the setbacks. And there's a few reasons why we would enhance the setbacks. Some of it's to help with neighborhood compatibility. Some of the towers can be pretty tall, you know, a 150-foot tower, 180-foot tower, and currently there's a 100% setback. And it really helps with aesthetics, but to minimize the impact further so it's not dominating the view shed and modifying the neighborhood characteristic or anything like that, we're proposing to enhance that setback to 150% of the tower height. And this is a real fine balance where we're trying to help with the neighborhood characteristics, but we also don't want to effectively prohibit cell towers. We still want to have enough parcels where they can be developed on. So staff did some analysis in GIS, some Esri ArcMap, where we looked at how many parcels would still have space for a cell phone tower with different setbacks. And so if we do 250-foot setbacks, about 12% of the parcels could have a tower built on them feasibly. With 500-foot setbacks, it would be about 4%. And with 1,000-foot setbacks, only about 1% of the parcels in Nevada County would be able to have a tower on them. And these numbers probably overestimate the number of parcels rather than underestimate. And the reason for that is the analysis didn't include any filtering for topography, zoning, or the avoidance of natural resources, or even whether there's any need for a cell tower. It was more of a screening tool. So we felt that the 150% is a good way to strike that balance between enough towers but enough protection. We can see this visualized on the screen right here. This is the southern part of the county, and that orange highlighting is the Lake of the Pines Homeowners Association, the planned development there. And basically anything colored is where a tower could fit in that area if we had 1,000-foot setbacks. So we can see if we did 1,000-foot setbacks, it would create a pretty big area where there just isn't any space for them. I mean, over to the west, there'd be those yellow portions on those larger parcels, but everywhere on the 49 corridor wouldn't really have much space at all. So on this next slide, this is with 250-foot setbacks, and all these colors just correspond to different setbacks, but anywhere where there's color pretty much, the yellow, red, or orange, are spaces where the towers could go. And so with that, we don't create that effective prohibition because we can still see plenty of parcels for towers, but it does help with the benefits of setbacks. Some other things we were looking for is that we are looking to require that after a tower be installed, we get a letter certifying that the on-the-field radio frequency emissions align with what was modeled in the requirement within 60 days. And we'd also require this for any modifications. So any post-installation or post-modification, we'd like some RF reports. During some of the public hearings, the workshops, people expressed concern about how the monopines were shedding the foliage. So we integrated that thought and concern into the code by requiring that the cell phone towers maintain the sites and make sure they're clear of litter, debris, and monopine foliage. If there's any debris, a concerned member of the community could reach out to Nevada County Code Compliance, and they could look into getting that resolved. In addition to the notice with the initial application, we're also looking into, with the proposed ordinance, having the public notice for a hearing increased. So currently it's 300 to 500 feet based off of the zoning. And with this proposed ordinance amendment, it would be a 1,000-foot notice before public hearing. Furthermore, as a way to respond to some of those concerns we heard during the workshop in March of 2025, the proposed ordinance changes the hearing authority for a new communication facility from the zoning administrator to the planning commission. It clarifies that administrative development permits are required for eligible facility requests. This is how they've already processed on the current code. It's just a clarification using that term. It wasn't previously used on our 20-year-old ordinance. We added a requirement for the applicant to provide a defense and indemnification agreement to the county. This is a standard condition of approval we require for all land use projects, whether it's a shopping center or a housing subdivision or something like that, but we just wanted that clarified in our cell tower ordinance as well. We created a procedure for temporary communication facilities that can be approved with an administrative development permit for a special event. So say there's like a fair or a concert or something where there's going to be increased demand and more capacity needed. There's a procedure where they could wheel on a tower temporarily to provide that. And we also provided some minor code cleanups and some clarity, just so we can integrate all these changes into the code in a smooth and cohesive way. This part of the presentation moves on to community engagement, coordination, and notification. This process began on March 31st when we did the kickoff workshop, where we got some input from the members of the community. The main themes of those concerns were the request for larger setbacks, the Planning Commission being the hearing body, the increased public notice, RF monitoring, and cell site maintenance. Staff worked. We looked at implementing those. When drafting the ordinance, we also looked at the FCC model ordinance, some of the neighboring ordinances from Placer County, Yuba County, Sacramento County, Los Angeles, just to see if there's any good ideas that were in there that we could implement. And we also looked at some of the federal law itself and made sure we were all consistent with that and integrated things as needed. Once we had that put together, we released it on July 9th for a 30-day comment period that ended on August 8th, 2025. The public outreach for this process included notification in the union. We posted it on the county website. We put it on the county Facebook page. And we also put it on the radio station KNCO. In addition to that, we mailed public notices to everyone that attended the workshop, anyone that requested to be notified, and anyone in our list of project notifications, which is about 300 people of people who want to be noticed, community groups, and other stakeholders. As a result of that public notice, we received 51 unique comments. 10 comments asked for easier permitting. 3 were from communication companies providing their input. 5 comments were from government agencies asking for clarifications regarding things that they're stakeholders of. We had 2 people that provided support for the ordinance, 2 people that were opposed to communication facilities entirely, and 29 requested modifications to the amended ordinance, and mostly referred to the Nevada County Safe Tech Ordinance, which we looked at and implemented a few things from there as a result of those comments, in addition to about 15 other changes as a result. We received 399 emails from bulk emails that all had the same message from One Click Politics that was coordinated by Stop 5G. We received a second batch of 140 bulk emails. And as I mentioned, staff reviewed that Safe Tech ordinance and added solutions where feasible, to address public concerns as much as possible. Since the release of the staff report, 2 memos have been released. We released the first memo on February 17th, which was after the staff report came out on February 13th. That included 7 comments, including the Nevada Safe Tech ordinance, which was unfortunately not included as a comment with the initial staff report, but we sent it out soon afterwards. We received more comments after that first memo, and so a second memo was provided on February 26th of 2026, so this morning. This included 38 unique comments and a single example of the 1,402 bulk emails that were received from 201 unique senders. The comments in the memos discussed radio frequency exposure testing, a process for communication facility exemptions, the addition of definitions, enhanced justification of communication facilities, facility maintenance and removal, the National Historic Preservation Act, continuous RF monitoring and verification, setbacks being too restrictive, setbacks not being restrictive enough, tower design criteria, and other concerns that were previously discussed in the staff report. As a result of some of those comments that we received, staff also suggests a few modifications to the ordinance. This was discussed in that second memo that was provided earlier today. One of those proposed modifications to the ordinance already provided was that in Section C in Permitting Requirements 3, it's proposed that the phrase, "the following are exempt from the permitting requirements of this chapter," be changed to, "the following are exempt from the permit requirements of this chapter, but minor antennae and small wireless facilities are still subject to the operational requirements in Section I." Another change that we're proposing with the memo is in Section C, under permitting requirements, we add subsection 7 that clarifies that this ordinance shall not apply to applications filed before the effective date. In subsection D, it's proposed that the phrase, and this is in regard to the preparation of a radio frequency report, compliance report. So instead of those reports being signed and submitted under penalty of perjury by the engineer, that is proposed to be removed and replaced with the engineer stamping and signing that radio frequency compliance report. And another change that's being proposed is that in Section D, while we were requiring defensible space, the word space was omitted. So it's suggested that space be added back in behind defensible. And the final correction in Section E is that there was a typo with the word contagious, which should have been contiguous. Just like any other project that the county's processing, we have to make sure we're doing it within the alignments of the procedures and the guidelines of the California Environmental Quality Act. And this is not to say that all the future cell towers would be exempt. We would still have to follow CEQA for any future use permit. It would probably result in an initial study where we'd look into it. But just for this ordinance itself, due to the nature of it, and because it's really just strengthening an existing ordinance and isn't creating new land uses that weren't previously approved, there's various sections of CEQA that exempt it. All these administrative updates, like the clarification of definitions, permit processing timeline requirements, public notice, application requirements, hearing body. There's no physical environmental impact. These are just covered by the general rule exemption. Things we're doing for the protection of the environment, like the increased tower setbacks, the RF monitoring, and the facility maintenance requirements, Those are also covered by the general rule exception and also actions for the protection of the environment. The clarification about how eligible facility requests are processed, that's just an administrative process being clarified, so it's another general rule exemption. And the act of the EFR itself, the eligible facility request, would just be covered in the CEQA exemption of additions to an existing structure or existing facility. Things like emergency deployments, like the cells on wheels that could be deployed during a declared disaster, or the emergency generators. There's specific exemptions for actions to mitigate an emergency, which those are covered under, and other exemptions such as the facility meter reading over their reception device. Those are already exempt. Those are just general rule exemptions again. And the temporary event facilities portion of it would be covered by an exemption for the minor temporary use of land. When we did the broadband EIR a couple years ago, there was a section in there that it was a programmatic EIR that discussed the provisions for being able to do something like small cells on utility poles, and so that's covered by our existing programmatic EIR. So as a result, the staff recommendations are as follows. The recommended environmental action is that the Planning Commission recommend that the Board of Supervisors find the project exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act based off of those exemptions. And the recommended project action is that the Planning Commission recommend that the Board of Supervisors adopt the ordinance as amended by the February 26, 2026 memorandum, amending the Nevada County Code, Title 12 Zoning Regulations, Chapter 3, Specific Land Uses, Section 12.03.080, and Chapter 5, Administration and Enforcement, Section 12.05.060. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time. I'm available to answer all questions.
Excellent. Commissioner, would you like to start the questions?
I don't think so.
Nothing?
Not yet.
Do you have something?
I guess I just have just a couple quick ones. In the ordinance, I guess, can you explain the difference of what triggers a conditional use permit versus an administrative development permit? Like the threshold for what those towers are?
Yeah, so basically any new facility, it's pretty broad. Anything that doesn't have a specific exemption for it or is not an eligible facilities request requires a use permit. The eligible facility requests are done with an ADP. There's specific federal language for what qualifies as an eligible facilities request. So that's, if you have a tower outside the right-of-way, you can increase the height by 10% or not more than 20% separation from the existing antenna to the next antenna. Or you can increase the width of it by 20 feet, or you can increase the base station lease area by not more than 30 feet in any direction. So with that alignment with the FCC definition of an eligible facilities request, any project that meets that would be done with an ADP. But even if someone was trying to do a modification to a tower where it's large enough to not qualify for an EFR anymore, then it would just have to be done through a discretionary process like a use permit.
Great. Thank you for that. I guess there was a lot of public comment about the radio frequency emission monitoring, and it sounds like that is something that's kind of outside the purview of the county, and that's more of a federal regulation that they handle that kind of stuff.
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct. We can still require documentation that these towers are projected to meet those federally determined exposure limits for the general population. And so we're requiring that projection with the application and also after the installation. But in terms of defining the methodology or creating our own standard or trying to regulate based off of RF, that's really outside of our authority.
Okay. I guess my last question would be the RF exposure reports. What kind of information is included in that document?
The RF exposure reports are usually modeling the worst case scenario. So it's done by some sort of electrical engineer. They usually have to do some sort of process that demonstrates how this tower is, reliably meeting those FCC standards. It's usually some sort of, there's like a diagram. It has a list of all the different antennas, the list of the frequency that they're going to be emitting, and it will show usually graphically where it's exceeding the FCC limits and where it's not.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now.
Commissioner McAteer?
Thank you. Before we get to public comment, I'd like to talk about this shot clock. Okay, I really have a vague view of understanding it, and I need a little bit more. So let's begin when Verizon sends you a request for a new tower in some location. When does this start? When does this clock start running? How long is the run? And more importantly, what are the steps within that run that might be existing, and then the steps that are new that you're placing in there? Do you understand my question?
Yes, Commissioner, I understand your
Great.
question. So we're not placing any new steps in the shot clock requirement. The shot clock actually puts a lot of pressure on us as a county to make sure we're complying with it so that we don't miss the deadlines and risk it being deemed complete by a failure to act on it. It begins when the applicant makes the first procedural step in it. So as soon as the procedural step in the application process. So when they first submit the application, that's when the shot clock begins ticking. And in your example, you asked what the shot clock would be for a new tower. So that'd be 150 days.
So from the time that you get something, it may not be complete, then you have 150 days? Is that the case, or do you wait for the application to begin complete before the date starts?
The shot clock begins immediately as soon as they make that first step in our process by submitting it. But it's pretty common that the applicant doesn't turn in an application that's 100% complete. So within 30 days, we have to send our first determination letter. And it's often we send an incomplete determination letter asking for more requirements or corrections to align their project with the county code. And when we send that letter, then we toll the shot clock. So the shot clock stops ticking until they resubmit. And as soon as they resubmit, then we have 10 days to review their resubmittal. And then so that kind of goes on with them resubmitting and us having 10 days on the shot clock until we deem it complete. Then once we deem it complete, the shot clock is ticking until we go to public hearing. And what we often have to do is, because if a tower becomes contentious, we often have to work with the applicant to try to toll the application to create some additional time. So that way, if the tower is appealed, we have additional time to process an appeal.
So I thought you've added this requirement about a balloon test. Is that something that's new to this or not a new? And I was pleased to see that property owners adjacent were being notified early on in the process that Verizon's wanting to put a tower. Is that new, or has that already been there?
The notice is new.
Okay.
It is a direct response to the public concerns expressed in the March workshop. The balloon or drone test is also a new thing. When we were drafting the ordinance amendments, we were really trying to bolster the criteria of what the cell companies have to do with their photo simulations, kind of create a computerized model of what the tower would look like there. So no one really uses balloon tests much anymore. They will often just use a drone, and the drone, their market, they put like orange pool floaties on it so it's easier to see in the photos. And they fly it at 100 feet or whatever the height of the tower is. And in there, we can see photos of the drone hovering there, and we can cross-reference it with the different displays shown on the screen of the drone.
As I understand it, the community is notified, the surrounding property owners are notified, and does that mean that they're notified that come on out and see the drone flying, or is this an after the fact?
There's no notice for them to, there's no public notice to the community when the consultant goes out with the drone.
Okay.
It's usually done by like a specialized consulting company that's like a subcontractor of the communications.
So what is new is that the public knows early on that Verizon, I'm just using them as an example, wants to put a tower up near their property.
Exactly, Commissioner. They would be the public would be noticed even before the county would be noticed.
Really? Well, that's good. Okay, so continue down that process. So we've done the drone test and all, and they're going along through this process. Now, as I read it, the public is only given 10 days of when the public hearing is going to take place. That seems a bit short to me.
The 10-day notice of public hearing is just a standard part of our code. That's the notice under the California state law, and the same notice we would do for any hearing for a discretionary project that goes before the zoning administrator, the planning commission, or the board of supervisors. But the notice of public hearing isn't the public's only notice about the project. There's multiple times where the public is
Good. Tell me
noticed.
about those multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the new ordinance, there's a proposed prior to the application.
Right.
If there's a new tower, say like a wireless communication facility that's like a standalone, we'd have to do a CEQA initial study for it. And so usually we do a 30-day public comment period where we would put it in the newspaper, put it online, post it to the recorder's office, put it on the county website, notify all the stakeholders. So, and that process, it gives them 30 days to comment, and it's usually much before the hearing is. I did slightly go out of order. Even before the notice or the CEQA initial study, notice of availability, we would also notify any member of the public during the initial distribution of the project. So when we first get that application, anyone that's requested to be notified, we would also notify them as well.
And are these notices to 1,000 feet? Is that what it is? 1,000 feet from the property's boundary? What is that number?
So there's two notices with the 1,000-foot boundary. That application notice that comes in before the application is submitted, and also the notice of public hearing. The CEQA notice isn't set up like that.
Right.
And the initial distribution notice isn't set up like that either.
Okay. And so let's continue. I just want to carry this whole shot clock thing out. So now we've gone through the process and the application is complete. Everyone's been noticed. There's a public hearing in front of us, I guess, at that point. Is that what the public hearing is for this commission?
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. And then the question is, does this case automatically go to the Board of Supervisors? Is there an appeal process at all built in relative to community members that aren't satisfied with the result?
Yes, Commissioner. For any project that the planning department is processing, there's a built-in appeal period. There's a 10-day appeal period. And so someone who's dissatisfied with the action of the hearing authority, the hearing body, can go and file their appeal with the Board of Supervisors. And then the appeal, if the Board of Supervisors decides to take the appeal, they would then hear the appeal.
So cases automatically don't go to the Board of Supervisors after our decision?
Not for an individual cell phone tower like that.
Okay. And is there a cost to be able to appeal from here to there or here to here?
It's approximately $2,000.
Really?
But if the board upholds the appeal and overturns the decision of the ZA or the planning commission, then the applicant is refunded the money.
And that $2,000 is determined because it's going to take so much staff time? Is that how this comes about?
Yes, it does take a lot of staff time. We probably, based off of the Board of Supervisors fee schedules, it probably costs more than $2,000 in staff time to create these staff reports and presentations.
Okay.
And all that.
And finally, my last question is, thank you for clarifying all that. You have 7 or 8, in my conversation with you, 7 or 8 applications that are sitting on your desk currently. In this amendment that you're proposing, does that grandfather them into the old game plan if they haven't completed their application? So they're in the process, but they haven't completed. Are they grandfathered into the old ordinance, or do they revert to this ordinance?
With the proposed amendments in the second memo, it would clarify that they'd be grandfathered into the old ordinance.
Those 7 or 8 towers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And if we didn't approve those amendments, then that amendment, then those 7 towers would be coming in this direction.
So if that modification in the memo wasn't supported or approved by the Planning Commission, it would likely be that the towers that are complete would still be grandfathered, but the ones kind of in limbo where they've been submitted but haven't been deemed complete, those are the ones where potentially they would be subject to the new ordinance.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Garst?
Yeah, thank you. Couple of questions. In a CEQA study, how does CEQA analyze radio frequency exposure, or does it consider that a negative impact in any way?
That is something we look at when we're doing the CEQA initial studies. One of the documents we rely on is that radio frequency exposure report prepared by the electrical engineer as required by the application. We usually include that discussion within the hazard section of the initial study, and have some sort of discussion about how, based off of this RF report, the tower would comply with FCC standards.
Okay, thank you. Can you explain to me in practical terms how this would work? The small cell wireless facilities definition says, Part A, Section 3, do not extend existing structures on which they are located to a height of more than 50 feet or more than 10%, whichever is greater. In a practical description, how might that work?
Say you've got like a telephone pole, or, like a power pole on like a main road or something like that. They're like maybe 30 or 40 feet tall or something like that.
Right.
So a cell company would just put a 3 cubic foot antenna on an existing utility pole.
So they wouldn't be allowed to then increase the height of that power pole by up to 50 feet on top of what's existing?
Under that, the definition, they would be able to increase the height of that power pole, or if they wanted to put the antenna on top of the pole a little bit, as long as it doesn't exceed that 50 feet.
And so we're saying under this ordinance that no permit would be required for that?
That's correct.
Okay, so a company could theoretically increase the height of a 30-foot pole to 80 feet without a permit?
No, because the pole couldn't be more than 50 feet in total. So
Okay.
they could, if it's a 35-foot
Okay.
pole, they could maybe add like a 10-foot.
Understood.
thing.
Okay. All right, thank you for that clarification. There was also a section in here that's under the application requirements, Part 1F. It says towers that are located at a distance that is less than 100 feet of their height from a property line have to show that they, there's some additional engineering. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, it really relates to something in like an industrial zoning district, because in all the other zone districts, we have the 100% set, or the 150% setback.
Anyway.
Yeah, all the way. And even if it's adjacent to another, so it's like, say it's an industrial zone district and it's adjacent to a residential zone district. We also have a line there that says even if you're adjacent, you still have to have 150% setback. So that would be only if there was maybe some sort of variance that was granted, or if there really wouldn't be a lot of reasons other than the variance why that would even become applicable, just because of the new setbacks. And that's really just an artifact of the old code.
Okay. And then these additional engineering certifications that it is designed to withstand failure in wind forces, earthquakes, and ice, is that not required for every application?
Yeah, it is a duplicative requirement, because any tower that is built ends up having to meet the building codes anyways.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Commissioner, did you have anything at this point?
Nope, all good information.
Okay. All right, so a couple of questions. If we didn't pass this today, then it's not that we wouldn't have regulations, it's that we would be staying with the regulations that were passed, or the ordinance from 2006, correct?
Yes, Chair, that's correct.
And so in that, the changes so what's not on the table is to say we're not going to have any towers of any sort at all. So that what we're doing here, or what you're proposing, is that we're going to add some additional protections by increasing the setback, by increasing the notifications, et cetera, correct?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. We're trying to, we couldn't create an ordinance that just bans towers. It would be a violation of the federal law to do that.
And so is there any part of the modifications that were, that are under proposal that the telecommunications folks are excited about?
We haven't had a lot of discussion with the telecommunication folks directly. I don't know what they're excited about. They haven't given us any kudos, unfortunately. They did send us a couple of letters about things that are illegal about our ordinance that we changed through the various steps. That penalty of perjury suggestion to remove, that came as the result of a letter from a Verizon lawyer. They had some softer language about why we can't allow the 150-foot setbacks, but I think it might still be okay. They had some requirements. It's just that they had a few requirements that we've adjusted, but they didn't congratulate us or anything like that.
So we've been talking about this as if it's all telecommunications, but this actually governs radio or TV or other antennas, correct?
Yeah, the communication facility definition is pretty broad, and it's probably the way that a lot of these uses would fit into our land use tables.
Okay. So I saw in some of the letters that some of the comments were of other jurisdictions that had created ordinance. Do you know, I don't remember offhand what they were, but do you know if those other jurisdictions are in trouble in any sort of way with the FCC?
I haven't looked into any court cases specifically to other jurisdictions like that.
Okay, thanks. How many towers do we currently have in Nevada County?
Based on the FCC tower registration website, there's 30 towers in all of Nevada County, and that includes the incorporated areas like Nevada City, Grass Valley, Truckee, and unincorporated Nevada County.
And then you said 7 or 9 that were in process?
Yes, Chair, we currently have 7 towers currently in process.
Do you have a sense of what the anticipated density would be if the telecom was like, okay, this is our optimal density?
No, unfortunately, I don't. A lot of that is internal things kept with the Verizon engineers, and they don't keep us in the loop with those kinds of discussions.
Is there, with the expansion and the mapping that you showed with the addition, with the add to the easement or the setbacks, rather, is there worry about not being able to provide future coverage for wireless?
I think we're right at the edge of it. There's still plenty of parcels based off of the mapping that could fit the cell phone towers. So I don't think it's quite an effective prohibition, but we are responding to those concerns from the community about neighborhood compatibility and things like that.
So is this, can they go on any zoning of a parcel as long as it's large enough, or is there a zoning base that you have to start with before you even talk about setbacks?
You do have to have a compatible zoning district, so we don't allow towers in open space or our R1 zoning district.
So then the RF, that's, I mean, we talk about that as radiation, but it's different than like an X-ray, correct?
I'm not too familiar with the scientific principles behind the different electromagnetic wavelengths.
So once you get an RF report, you said that it was created by an electrical engineer, but who reviews those?
We're relying on their professionalism and their stamp that this report is appropriate. In addition to that, that same report goes to the FCC, where the FCC is the primary reviewer of it, where they look at it in more detail and assure that it meets all of their methodologies and is reliable. It's mostly an informational report to us.
Are there existing towers that have repeated complaints?
Not that I'm aware of. Most of the RF reports show that the towers would only be 1 or 2% of the general population maximum exposure.
And in terms of debris at the bases or anything, are there offenders, regular offenders?
I don't know specifically, but we have received a lot of public comments in regard to monopine foliage being scattered on the ground. So that is something where with the adoption of this ordinance amendment, people could reach out to code compliance about these towers not being maintained in alignment with the ordinance.
We talked earlier about the appeals process for citizens. If something were to be passed that they didn't, is there also then an appeals process for the applicant if it was denied?
Yes, that is correct. The applicant could appeal as well, and then if they're not satisfied with the board decision in the appeal, they could eventually take it to court.
So under the current code, is there any public notification?
Yes, Chair, we do have public notification under the current code. We do we don't have a pre-application requirement for notification, but we still do our initial distribution notification, we do our CEQA notifications, and we do a notice of public hearing that we post in the newspaper on the county website, and we notify all adjacent parcels within 300 to 500 feet based off of zoning under the current ordinance.
And so then the additional foot, the 1,000-foot radius, that's the primary change to or increase to the public notification?
Yes, it's two things. It's the addition of the extra 500 feet for the notice of public hearing, but it's also the addition of the pre-application notice.
Okay, thanks so much. I appreciate the answers.
Can I get one clarification? Because I spoke with you a couple days ago, and you said there was about 50-something towers in the county. So since then, what information have you gained that now we're in the 30 range?
When you and I spoke, I spitballed 20 to 30, and then as soon as I got off the phone with you, I went onto the tower registration website and figured
And that
out.
told you that there were those many, 30-ish.
Yeah.
And are any of those, does it denote any small cell towers or small cell boxes?
That would be everything registered with the FCC. And so I didn't specifically click on every one to see what kind of facility it was, but the small cells
are registered.
They have to be registered. So everything registered is that number.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think then the next step is to open this to public comment. Is that correct? All right. If you guys want to go ahead and call it 5 people lined up, you'll have 3 minutes apiece. And if you could start out by giving us your name and address, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. This is a very complicated matter. When I looked into it, I was blown away with how complicated it is.
Could you start with your name and address, please?
Michael Taylor in District 1. I also want to thank the Planning Department for the job they did. It's an amazing job that they put together all this. One of my problems with how this went by or happened is I started researching online what is the proposed ordinance, and I learned that that was not the current proposed ordinance. They have since updated it, from my understanding, and I was provided the most recent draft ordinance of this. I just wanted to, if I could approach you guys and hand you these. I have uploaded or I've updated my most recent amendments in writing. These were turned into the however, that's at the time of 8 o'clock. It's February 17th at 1 p.m. So that would be my most current recommendations. There's 10 small amendments to the draft that I would highly recommend. as well as a few other items that might be added. The other thing I'd like to suggest is that you guys do take this and take it, I don't know what the word is for it, take it on submission or don't make a final decision today because of the complexity of this. And each of these amendments that are going to be suggested today are very complicated, and there's a lot of them. So making verbal recommendations to staff at this point, I think would be mute per se, because there's so many small changes that probably should be done. I highly also recommend that there is not, exemptions. I think that we got to be really careful in our community that if we have exemptions under a certain height, then telecommunications are going to start designing towers that work under those requirements, and then we'll have many towers all over the place. I don't think they should be exempt. Other than what's on this, because it's really hard for me to read, this is pretty clear on what my recommendations are. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Violet. I live in Penn Valley. Thank you, everyone, for being here today and taking all of our thoughts into account. There's a few points I want to make. The first being about radio frequency. I know there's a lot of debate about that. But the fact of the matter is it's new technology that is advancing all the time, and there have not been any long-term studies because the technology has not been around that long. So we are putting these towers up everywhere around our children, our parents, our grandparents, and around our animals. And it's just, we don't know if they're safe. We don't know the long-term 10, 20, 30-year effects. And so I don't think it's fair for all of us who move out of the city into the country for reasons like this to then be essentially in an experiment. We just don't know the safety. So I think I understand you can't block all the towers, but there should not be exemptions. And as far as the notifications, it seems like 1,000 feet is definitely not enough. If I was 1,500 feet and I didn't get notified, I would be pretty upset. And as well as just the notifications in general. I was told about all this through a friend of mine, and I had no idea that any of this was going on. So I think this is something that matters a lot to people in this community, and most people don't know any of these big changes are being made or protections taken away or not enough added. So just please consider what everyone who chooses to live out in the country like this wants. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Hi. My name is George McKenzie. I'm at 11385 Caroline Lane. I come to you today, here in Nevada City, I come to you today as a cell tower owner, property owner with a cell tower on it. I come to you as a citizen that is trained in physics and electromagnetic waves. Can you hear me? Better. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You can pull that mic towards you.
Oh, boy. There you go. Can I get my 3 minutes back? Yeah. No? Too bad. Listen, the Planning Commission allowed my cell tower company, American Tower, to bring another generator to my site under emergency situations. Verizon didn't want to give T-Mobile power on the same tower. The Planning Commission approved a permit that allowed them to bring an emergency generator, another one. This is a Cat diesel generator. No consideration to me. No one came and asked me about noise levels. No one asked me anything about it. They came, they put it in, and it is so loud. That's what they will do here with the existing rules. If we are not enforcing the existing rules, why do we need to increase them or release them to be yet even more phallus so that you can abuse us citizens? Under emergency precis, they came up my road and smushed all the snow because they needed to bring gasoline, diesel, to these generators. This happened during Snowmageddon when it was emitted even through our cell phones that, hey, a big storm is coming, get ready. They didn't. and under emergency processes came up my road and made it so that my neighbors and I couldn't get out for 2.5 weeks under 8 inches of ice. These cell tower companies don't care about us. I measured the EMF wave levels before I arrived. Under the pretense of upgrading, those EMF levels doubled. It is roughly equivalent to having a high-powered Wi-Fi router directly underneath your pillow. I am within 200 feet of that cell tower. What notification did I get? None. None. Do not increase these rules, please. I implore you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Johanna Finney. I live in Nevada City, District 5, and I represent Nevada County for Safe Tech, the community coalition that built the model ordinance template provided to staff. Unfortunately, our suggestions were largely dismissed. Before others speak, here's the context. The public comment you've received and what you hear today centers on that template. It's built specifically for our county terrain, fire risk, waterways, and rural character. Here's what's at stake and what's possible. This commission has the legal authority to act under Federal 47 U.S.C. and California's general law powers. The FCC's Build America rulemaking is under review right now, and action is expected in 26. Every national local government organization, including the National Association of Counties, League of Cities, Conference of Mayors, told the FCC that local communities have the right to decide what's built in their neighborhoods. What you adopt before federal action occurs is what you get to defend. The county's current draft omits independent design review for administrative permits. That's the pathway that's going to see the highest volume of applications. Those are the small cell facilities, and it should be stated in the ordinance, those design reviews, or just make it a CUP. You still can, then it comes before you. So as it stands, it means no independent check on the building, electric, and fire code that's written into this ordinance. And without meaningful decommissioning requirements and financial assurances tied to the real removal costs, you get abandoned infrastructure. A rusted pole covered in metal boxes outside a home, an ugly tower you drive by every day, and our template requires real cost estimates, actual bonds, and site restorations. Our neighborhoods and rural communities deserve a buffer. 500 feet is not radical. The city of Petaluma and other cities across the state require it. I ask that you really consider that 500-foot setback. It's defensible in court. That's what I want you to know. It's what excellent land planning looks like. So we're asking you to adopt an ordinance that protects people, holds carriers accountable, and preserves your local authority before federal landscape shifts beneath us. Not out of fear of technology, obviously. It's out of respect for this community, landscape, and the residents who trust you to get it right. This template we offer, it's not a burden, it's a roadmap. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Louise Jones. I'm a resident of the Lightning Tree neighborhood, District 1. I serve on our Firewise Council, which means my neighbors and I spend a lot of time thinking about exactly what it takes to keep our community safe from wildfire. This includes defensible space, fuel reduction, evacuation planning, and working closely with our fire department. That's the lens I'm bringing. I'm here to ask the Commission to add a comprehensive fire safety plan requirement to the draft ordinance, because right now that requirement is absent. And in Nevada County, that's a problem. Modern wireless facilities are not passive structures. They contain large battery banks, often lithium ion, rectifiers, inverters, generators, and high voltage power systems. Lithium ion battery fires at telecom facilities are a documented national problem. They burn intensely. They're extremely difficult to extinguish with conventional methods, and they release toxic gases. Now picture one of these facilities burning in our community in or near a very high fire hazard severity zone. Our fire department responds, and they have no document on file telling them what's inside, where the batteries are, how to de-energize the system, or what type of hazardous materials they're dealing with. That's what the current draft leaves us with. The ordinance template provided by Nevada County Safe Tech that was provided to the county included a detailed fire safety plan requirement. It covers emergency contacts, battery types and locations, thermal runaway protection, lightning protection compliance under NFPA 780, which matters enormously in our foothill terrain, and critically, step-by-step depowering procedures so that first responders know exactly how to safely shut down a burning facility. As someone who works on fire preparedness planning, I can tell you this is exactly the kind of pre-incident information that saves lives and prevents a structure fire from becoming a wildland fire. We require this level of planning for other types of hazardous facilities. There is no good reason why wireless facilities should be exempt. I also want to flag that the draft is missing an engineer's report requirement for structure.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I wanted to first thank you for all your questions. I'm very grateful for them. My name is Brooke Molina, and I live off Polaris Drive in Grass Valley. I live directly across from the newly installed 150-foot Verizon tower that they put up at Landmark Baptist Church property on the eve of Christmas Eve. And to the best of my knowledge, they did it overnight, because I'm outside all the time, and I noticed it first thing in the morning on Christmas Eve. I'm here because the day the tower was activated, I developed a persistent ringing in my ears, something I've never experienced in my life. I have no other health conditions. It disappears as soon as I leave the property, when I leave the property. Starting that same night, my son and I slept for 13 hours. This is not normal. We still woke up exhausted, and this sleep discrepancy exists to this day. This is not usual and was not gradual. The onset was immediate, and it coincided exactly with the tower activation, which I confirmed with the technicians on site. National Institute of Health has reports of microwave syndrome from 5G technology with documented cases, and our symptoms coincide with what the symptoms listed on that site coincide with what we're experiencing. As a scientist, I understand that correlation doesn't automatically equal causation. That's precisely why the measurement, transparency, and independent verification matter. I am requesting 3 specific protections. First, include good cause testing provision for residents who believe a facility might be affecting them. They should be able to request independent RF testing at the operator's expense. Second, require full technical disclosure at the time of application. That means antenna type, maximum effective radiated power, cumulative emissions modeling, and calculated exposure levels at different distances and altitudes from the tower. Third, require annual third-party certification. These towers are not static. Technology evolves, and additional carriers can co-locate, which increases power levels. A one-time compliance snapshot does not protect residents for the next 25 years. I've been a Nevada County resident for over 20 years. This tower was erected within days of Christmas without getting any prior notification. I am within 800 feet of the tower. I cannot change that this tower went up, but you can ensure that other families have stronger safeguards and measurable standards and meaningful recourse. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Maureen Graber, District 1, Banner Mountain. What is the purpose of a county ordinance? A county ordinance is a law enacted by county government, and the purpose of the ordinance is to regulate various aspects of life within the county's jurisdiction, addressing local needs and concerns that may not be covered by state or federal law. This includes public health and safety, zoning and land use, environmental protection, among others. In essence, county ordinances are designed to create a framework for orderly living and to protect the welfare of its residents and preserve the character of the community within the specific context of that county. This draft ordinance is an opportunity for the Planning Commission to both meet FCC requirements and protect our citizens from the proliferation of unsightly and dangerous cell towers. One neighborhood should not be unfairly impacted by multiple cell towers just because a large for-profit organization wishes to generate even more revenue. To that end, please return the language in Section E1, Item D, to protect individual neighborhoods from being subjected to multiple cell towers. The stricken language includes the words, "No tower shall be installed closer than 2 miles from another readily visible, uncamouflaged, or unscreened facility." In other words, no single neighborhood should bear an unfair burden presented by the addition of more cell towers. Burdens for middle-class Nevada County homeowners include reduced property values as high as 9.78%, a reluctance of buyers to purchase a home near a cell tower, damage to the rural nature, neighborhood character, and forest aesthetic promoted as the reason to move to Nevada County, undocumented long-term health impacts as cellular technology continues to grow in frequency capacity, increased and proven wildfire risk related to associated generators, and both human and equipment failures. The County Planning Department has received and included input from experts in the telecommunications industry for the revised draft, and yet refused to add consumer protections offered by the Nevada County for Safe Tech organization. Why? As our Planning Commission, I request you review the information offered by the Nevada County for Safe Tech and protect Nevada County homeowners over for-profit telecommunication industry giants. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Cheryl Borad. I'm in District 5. I live on Highway 20, right next to a parcel where a proposed tower is to be built. I am asking the Commission to adopt a strong ordinance, one that protects people like me, and to make sure any tower applicant has to meet those new standards before getting a permit. The ordinance template from Nevada County for Safe Tech says a cell tower must be at least 500 feet away from any home. That distance is measured from the closest part of the tower, even the tip of a fake tree branch, to the property line. The county's own maps show exactly where towers can and cannot go under different setback rules. I'm asking the Commission to adopt that 500-foot standard and require it to be applied to any application near my neighborhood. The proposed ordinance template we offered says the company must prove there is a real gap in service here, not just the company computer map. They must actually drive through the area, record the signal strength at real locations, and hand those numbers to the county. They must also show records of dropped calls and times people could not get a signal at all. And a real engineer must sign the coverage maps and explain exactly how they were made. Without all of that, no tower application should be approved. Even if there is a coverage gap, the rules say the company must look for a less intrusive location first. Locations next to homes are supposed to be the last resort. The application process requires the company to identify every possible alternative site and prove in writing why each one will not work. What carriers typically do instead is send out a form letter to property owners and only consider the ones who write back. That is not a real site analysis. That is marketing. I am asking the Commission to require the applicant to show that a genuine independent site search was conducted, not just a list of whoever responded to a mailer. If they cannot show that work, the application should not move forward. The ordinance requires the company to fly a balloon at the height of the proposed tower so neighbors can see what it will actually look like. This is my neighborhood. I should be able to see that before any decision is made. I would need the ordinance to require notification to neighbors within 1,000 feet of the time and the date that is happening. And we live in fire country. The ordinance requires a detailed fire safety plan covering batteries, fuel, electrical shutoff, and how firefighters can safely work around this structure. The roads in my neighborhood have only one ingress and egress.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nick. I'm an honorably discharged veteran and a resident of a neighboring county who has seen firsthand how these so-called portable telecommunication towers can bypass regulations and ultimately become permanent facilities with little regard to the law. To explain the situation briefly as possible, years ago, a portable tower was placed on a neighbor's property. At the time, it was small and minimally intrusive. The tower company intentionally used the terms portable to avoid oversight, public review, and a full public hearing, allowing the installation to move forward quickly under a simple administrative use permit. Over time, however, the company employed what can only be described as bait-and-switch tactics. Today, that small portable tower has transformed into a large, permanent telecommunication facility located 4.6 feet from my property line. The company labeled this entirely new installation as merely a modification in order to avoid additional hearings or public scrutiny. Over the span of 10 years, this site has evolved from a small, temporary, and movable structure with 6 antennas on a 10-by-10 base into a full telecommunication complex with more than 25 antennas, hazardous materials, and loud generators. This expansion simply occurred on the assumption that no one would notice. Remarkably, it still operates under the same AUP originally issued for a portable tower, with no RF report and no vegetation clearance. Adding to this concern, residents from a local Native American community warned that the site may be potentially sacred land. Rather than pause for proper evaluation, construction again proceeded under the label of a modification, avoiding broader notification and oversight. At some point, the question becomes unavoidable. If a portable tower can legally become a permanent industrial facility without renewed review, then what protections exist for residents? What happened in my county is exactly what Nevada County's ordinance has a chance to prevent. It closes the loopholes that allow temporary and modification labels to substitute for a full public review. Secondly, I'd like to address the common argument made by supporters and telecommunication companies in nearly every proposal. They claim these towers are necessary for public safety, and the hypocrisy of this argument is clear as day. We are told these towers must be placed in residential neighborhoods so residents can call emergency services and that lives are at risk without them nearby. However, what is never mentioned to them is the position taken by the very people who respond to those emergencies, our firefighters. The IAF, the largest firefighter organization in Northern California, has formally opposed cell tower placement on their fire stations due to RF health concerns. This information is easily found on their website. The same firefighters we respond to emergencies do not allow these towers on their own property because they're worried for the same reasons we are, and they have the data to back it up. Yet telecommunication companies argue that placing a tower just 4.6 feet from our property line is for our safety. So residents are left asking, if they're unsuitable for fire stations, why are they appropriate in our neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you.
And here's some pictures if you want to see.
My name is Vanessa Shinmoto. I submitted a written statement on behalf of Children's Health Defense. I would like to request an additional 3 minutes, so a total of 6 minutes to speak.
If you're representing an organization, then you can have 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Millman and Commissioners. I am a paralegal and program coordinator for the electromagnetic and wireless program at Children's Health Defense. I worked with Attorney Scott McCullough to draft Nevada County for Safe Tech's proposed ordinance template. And he has over 40 years of telecommunications industry experience. So the first thing I would like to emphasize is that the template ordinance is litigation proof and completely compliant with federal law. And furthermore, it will preserve your authority to exercise decisions, completely compliant. And so what I'm going to do is take you through how that works. The first problem with the county's ordinance is the lack of clear standards for wireless permitting. And what that means is that does not allow any substantial evidence. And that is something that is required under federal law for any denials or really any decisions that the county makes on the permitting. And so the Nevada County Safe Tech, the template ordinance, what it does is it is 45 pages long, 45, and it adds a lot more. But all of these requirements are necessary. And the first part of it is the application requirements. So number one, there's the basics, which is the application form with the contact information and site authorization and proof of occupancy and that kind of thing. And then it goes into the actual proof of need. And this is very important. Several commentators have touched on this, but the drive test is critical. It's not just what industry says. It is what, in actuality, is needed. Because under the effective prohibition federal law, they have to prove, they can still prove, there is still room to deny it, but they have to prove that they actually need it. And then even within that, there are restrictions where they still don't have to, you still don't have to grant the tower. So there's a detailed list in Nevada County's ordinance, the Nevada County for Safe Tech's template ordinance, in the application requirements. Now, it looks very onerous, and it may seem that there may be first more work at the outset, but all of that information is substantial evidence. So when the applicant has to provide, for instance, a radio frequency report with all the technical data. Right now, the county's ordinance does not have that. So what it does is it leaves industry to self-certify, and that is it's not helpful because there's very specific requirements, such as antenna specifications, the cumulative exposures, estimated exposures of radio frequencies, power density outputs, and run tables, things that an independent third-party engineer, third-party engineer can actually look at. So number one, all of this information will preserve your authority because you will all have it in front of you. And I do want to emphasize that, our team has drafted over a dozen of these ordinances. At least 5 of them have passed, and none of them have been litigated on. So right off the bat, this is, hold on. The other thing I wanted to point out in the last 46 seconds I have is we would like to offer you help and advice, and our legal team is available to answer any questions you have. We are happy to meet with David and Brian, planning staff, and go over specific provisions. So I would like to say thank you for the extra time, and thank you for your consideration. And last but not least, reject the county's draft, go back to the table, and urge them to adopt Nevada County's for Safe Text template ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renette Senum, former city council member and mayor in Nevada City, and I am a member of the Nevada County for Safe Tech. A year and a half ago, with Johanna's leadership, we organized Nevada County Safe Tech, and we have put thousands of dollars into this. We have put hundreds of hours into this. We have hired the best attorneys, and to let you know, Scott McCullough has court cases in the Supreme Court, so he knows his business. And I can get into the weeds of the grass, but I don't want to do that because it's quite clear. You have 15 pages or you have 45 pages. If you take the 15-page draft, you have 30 pages of loopholes. 30 pages of loopholes and 30 pages of back doors that lead to the experience Nick is experiencing right now with this cell tower. The same experience this gentleman over here is experiencing. What we have done is we have built the best draft possible based upon other cities in California who have done the same thing 4, 5, 6 years ago, and to this day, no litigation. That is Encinitas, that is Malibu, that's Mill Valley. If you need to, I suggest you table your decision tonight or today, and you go and you call the managers of those cities and ask them themselves, have you been litigated for your ordinances? The answer is going to be no, but if you need that, please do. So what we're doing is we're making sure that at the highest federal levels, we abide by the laws while protecting the county residents as much as humanly possible according to the federal laws. This makes their job easier because all the work has been done up front. And it makes your job easier because you're not going to be in the crosshairs when you have your constituents calling you because there's a cell tower popping up or one that's all of a sudden, no longer on wheels and becoming a monopole. So we have been working on this again for a year and a half to ensure that you are making the best decisions for the county planning, board of supervisors, and for the residences. And this is tried and true. And this has been a year and a half worth of efforts, I just want to say. And what we're doing at this point in time is we don't need to get in the weeds of the grass. We don't need to say, well, yes, add that, take that away, and so on. There's so many ways that this ordinance can go sideways, and so many ways you can't see unexpected consequences. And I have to tell you, the telecoms, this is what they have. They've got the lobbyists, they've got the billions of dollars, they've got the captured agencies, and they've got the government representatives, and all we have is you, each one of you, and this ordinance as our firewall of protection, and that is it. And what we are presenting to you today is an extraordinary piece of work, and we're giving it to you because we love this county so much. We want to protect it to the highest extent of the law to make sure you're never litigated against, and we're literally giving it to you on a silver platter. So please, just say yes, and let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sema, and I live off of Sages near Ananda. I'm a little nervous. This is dear to my heart. It just about killed me. There was a cell tower that went up outside my living room window, and birds flight, I'm guessing, 1/4 of a mile. It was at the fire station in Sedona, not here. The reason I came here is because we had to sell that house. No matter what I did, for diet, exercise, water, everything you can think of, my health just kept going down the toilet, and I couldn't figure out why. Nobody talks about it. Doctors don't talk about it. The only people that really know this topic are the people that came to my house to provide service, to hook up things, and so on. So long story, I had 15 different ailments, diseases, problems, and I thought, I was trying to wrap my mind around the thought, the idea, I'm going to die young, I should just get used to it. This is what it felt like. No matter what I did, it was just bad. And I knew the tower wasn't going away, so we sold the house and we moved here to the forest. Healthy, beautiful, no towers, and like I said, it's dear to my heart, and that's the way I would like to keep it. So I urge you, please, to work with Nevada County Safe Tech. Look at their draft. The current draft right now is not good enough. It's too close to homes, schools, sensitive areas, environmentally sensitive areas.
And I can tell you, you want to be at least a mile or two away, just from personal, I was not sensitive before this. I was a perfectly normal person working full time. But I told my husband, if I have vertigo, I can't drive. If I don't go to work, there's one less paycheck. It can really disrupt the whole thing. And it does. It does for many people. There are many stories out there. So I just want to say, I'm glad this conversation is taking place today. There's a lot of, wonderful information shared. And I think there's some, clarity and hopefully changes that the commission will look at doing. I would really encourage that. And please reject the current draft that you have, the ordinance that you have right now, and look at the safe, protective version that Nevada County Safe Tech has in place right now. Look at that, at least look at that. It's worth it because it affects all of our life. It's not just people who are sensitive like me. We become sensitive because the radiation destroys biological systems in your body. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Stroop. I'm with Verizon Wireless. We appreciate the collaborative effort that staff has taken to draft this ordinance. However, there's just two critical issues that we thought we'd like to bring to your attention today. The first one is what we're here talking about. I think the majority of us are talking about. It's the 150% setback. Verizon believes that that proposed setback from property lines would render the vast majority of the county parcels ineligible for new towers. The staff report, I think, outlined that about 12.21% of the parcels in the entire county would have enough space to host a wireless facility. Because of that, simple math says that a 150-foot tower with a 150% setback would require about 225 feet, which is pretty close to that 250. That would severely impact the ability for Verizon to deploy here in the county. It also would have a real world impact. Our recently improved site that's located, that serves the fairgrounds over on McCourty Road, that would have been prohibited under this new ordinance. So we urge you guys to just keep the 100-foot setback. The second is the current applications. So we have several applications currently in process. They were designed and engineered based on the current rules as they exist today. Changing those midstream, we think, would penalize the projects that are already in the pipeline, and it ignores the significant time and engineering that we've already spent on those. So we're just asking the commission to support staff's recommendation to apply the ordinance prospectively. In conclusion, by eliminating, we believe that it's about 88% of the potential sites this ordinance risks a federal effective prohibition of service. So I think that we should try to find language that incentivizes coverage rather than prevents it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tess. I live in Nevada City. There have been several studies that show the harmful effects of 5G. You can look at this up, you can research it. It harms animals and children the most because they're very sensitive. Friends of mine that have had little babies born near cell towers, 15 times in the night, these babies are screaming because of the effect of these 5G towers. The moment that they leave, they move to the forest where these towers don't exist, the baby sleeps okay. So I believe personally that when we die, we only take with us the lessons that we've learned and the impact that we've made on others. We don't take financial rewards or money or status or power. So anyone complicit in allowing something that is going to harm innocent children will have karmic repercussions that will way affect them beyond this lifetime. So I want you guys to really consider that. It is very important that you check in with your heart when you make this decision. Now, the FCC are proposing to take away our local authority and allowing corporations to just do whatever they want. We know that corporations have ruined this planet and do not care about how the well-being of people are affected by their greed and power. Now, this country is founded by people that fought for freedom ancestors and forefathers fought for the freedoms that people now are lucky to have. So when you guys make this decision, decide which side you want to be on, the side of the people or the side of the corporations who don't care. So I implore each and every one of you to really make that decision and know that this is going to be watched by God. So thank you very much.
Thank you all, and I would like to thank you supervisors. I noticed you're all paying really good attention, and I appreciate that. I'm Penny St. Clair. I live in North San Juan. I live approximately a half a mile closer as the crow flies to a proposed tower. I just found out last week that one of my neighbors has got an application in and did not have any further or earlier notification about the planning process for cell phone towers and revising the ordinance. I suggest you include KVMR as well as KNCO in your notifications when you're notifying the public, please. I want to thank Nevada County for Safe Tech for all the work you've done. I really appreciate that. I'm not prepared to address the subject, but I am very, very concerned. And our ordinance is 20 years old, right? And it doesn't need revision, it needs rewriting. The technology is newer and increasing all the time. We need to be prepared for that. I would never trust industry to monitor my usage of anything like cell towers. I think that's about it. I wish I was more prepared. I didn't know this meeting was happening until last night, but thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Holly Rose, and I live in Nevada City. I'm here because I love this county, the forests, the rivers, the wildlife. And I'm worried that as we rush to put up more cell towers, we might stop asking the most basic question. What is this going to do to our environment? California has a law called CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. It's been protecting communities like ours for over 50 years. What it says simply is this: before the government approves a project that could harm the environment, it has to look carefully at what that harm might be and require the developer to fix it. The good news is that the ordinance you're considering today does include that requirement. It says the county must conduct environmental review for each wireless facility permit. That's the right thing to do, and I want to acknowledge that. But here's my concern. The staff report that goes along with this ordinance declares it broadly exempt from environmental review, using multiple legal exemptions and pointing to an environmental study done back in 2023. And I understand why staff did that, but here's the problem. Once you put exempt from CEQA in writing in an official document, that language gets used. The telecom company lawyers are very good at their jobs. They will pick up that language and use it project by project to argue that their specific tower doesn't need an environmental review either. Building a cell tower isn't paperwork. It means digging up the ground, clearing trees, putting roads into hillsides. In Nevada County, with our fire danger zones, our mountain streams, our wildlife, each site is different. You can't decide in advance for every possible location that none of this matters. You have to look. That's what CEQA is for. And I want to mention one more thing, because I think it's important. The federal government is currently pushing hard to take this kind of local environmental review away from counties like ours. The FCC has an active proceeding right now, comment period just closed in January, trying to limit what local governments can require of wireless companies. They're calling local environmental review an unlawful burden. Think about that. If that fight comes to Nevada County, I want us to be on.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abra Adams, and I'm a resident of the North San Juan Ridge area. Thank you for giving us all the time to speak to this. As you can tell, there's a lot of concern. I have bullet pointed a few points and questions that I feel should be included in this new proposed ordinance. One question is, how would the public get, or how currently does the public get notified of tower proposals if it is surrounded, who is responsible for these notifications if the county is not, which it sounded like is the current situation from the proposal given in the beginning. Also, I want to say that I believe KVMR should be included since it is our community radio station as an avenue for informing the public of proposed towers and applications. As others' stories just shared here today, and these are just a fraction of stories that exist, real-life examples, we need third-party independent monitoring of towers, EMFs and RFs, frequency, effects, and reach. It's invisible, but the impact is not, especially when it happens to you. Given that our current laws are 20 years outdated, and how greatly technology has changed in that time and continues to change at a rapid rate, I propose that all existing applications be paused until new ordinance is in place, and I don't think we're there, and that none of these applications be allowed grandfather status. I believe today's proposal is a template that is a really good start, and I appreciate all of the hard work that went into it, but I see many holes, as others have pointed out. I think it's a major decision, and much more consideration is required. I would also like clarification on what it means for a complete application or development that would give it a grandfathered in status. But ultimately, I guess that's an older note. I think I clarified earlier that with such outdated rules, we need to pause any further development until a new proposal is in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ryan Radigan. I'm a resident of Nevada City. I have a business in Grass Valley. I've been here for almost 2 years. I've lived in many parts of the country. I've lived in other parts of the world. And it is a pleasure to be here with all of you today and to hear all this in passing speech and to see and to look into the eyes of people who take on positions such as yourself. This is a huge decision. It affects so many things, not just people's livelihoods and health, but in ways that we can't even maybe even comprehend at this point in terms of how we understand this technology. What we do know is that we are beings of energy and frequency. Quantum physics shows us that. EMF has a real effect on the physiological quantum makeup of our beings, not just ourselves, but all life. So your decision here today is not about setbacks. It's not about appeasing Verizon. It's not about even appeasing the federal government. It's about life. It's about what's important, not just for ourselves. in the 70, 80, maybe 90, 100 years that we have on this earth, but what we are leaving behind for all those who come after us. And so what I wish to convey is that we think about all these things. We don't just think about setbacks. We don't think about the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which pretends to take away local jurisdictions' authority to regulate for the peace and the health and the safety of the people of Nevada County. The U.S. Constitution and the 10th Amendment gives you plenty of power to regulate in a way that you see fit. The corporations pretend to have corporate personhood, but that's just a fabrication. Life is what matters. And so I implore you to take into account everything that has been shared with you today, all the impassioned speech, all the concerns about health and safety. Combine it with the understanding that you, as the local representatives of life in this area of the world, of the universe, has the power, the right, and the authority to make decisions that serve the best interests of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us. I'm Jacqueline Mazan. I live up on Banner Mountain at the top of Red Dog. Been there since '77. A tower is planned near me. I just want to reiterate the concerns already addressed. In your decision, I want you to consider the environmental protection, the fire risk, tower proximity to our homes, the effect to our property values, and potential health risks, accountability and maintenance and upkeep. We need to eliminate the possible loopholes present in the ordinance, and I pray for your thoughtful, wise decision in the matter. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Richard Krause. I have no idea what district I'm in, so I know that. First off, somebody mentioned KVMR to be notified. Also like to add Ubinet to that. Union's getting too restrictive. It's paid for on website and also by paper, whereas Ubinet is free. Found the fire comments by others quite interesting. I've never looked at a cell site as a fire hazard before. I was once not notified because I was a tenant of a property. I would like to see if you can encourage owners to notify their tenants of anything going on. And I don't mean just for antennas, I mean for everything to do with planning. I don't know how that would be done to require a tenant or to require a property owner to notify a tenant, but encourage it. Let's see. And the applicant notifying the property owners, I find to be doubtful. It'd be much better if the county did their own administration of that, as far as I'm concerned. Another thing I see, I like the mono trees. They look much better than just the basic antenna farm. But I see a lot more variety in Southern California with, let's say, water towers camouflaged as cell sites. Just encourage something different. And thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and staff. My name is Mark Graham, and I live in Elk Grove. I came up here today just to talk to you. Here's my recommendation. Table this proposal today or vote no. Direct the staff to investigate and study, including phone conversations and emails, what other jurisdictions have done on this same question, and then bring this back at a future Planning Commission meeting where you'll be fully informed. That's what I think you should do. I want to give you two questions that you should consider. The first is, what do the telecommunication companies really need? That's not the same as what they really want. What do they really need? And the second question is, what do your residents want and need? And I believe that the answers to those two questions the correct answers can guide you to the correct law, the best law to do for the county. What they need is enough cell antennas to provide coverage. They do not need them up and down the residential streets. They do not need them in front of your front yards. What the residents want and need, I mean, you know this, they do not want cell antennas close to their homes, in front of their homes. They want to be able to do everything you can do on your phone. I have way more here that I wanted to say than I have time to say. Madam Chair, you asked the staff, do you know if any of these other jurisdictions, and you might have been referring to what we do in Elk Grove with the front yard rule for residential, for cell antenna placements, are any of these in trouble with the FCC? The answer is no. Now, unfortunately, staff had my written recommendations as of June 3rd and August 8th and failed to provide it to the commissioners until this month. I think that was a big oversight. Staff also failed to pick up the phone, as I recommended, on page 161 in your packet. That was August 8th. Call the city attorney in the city of Elk Grove and ask him, how is it working? Have you been sued by Telecom for implementing your law in 2019, which prohibits a cell antenna immediately adjacent to the front yard of a residential dwelling? Mr. Hobbs would have told you no. I actually recommend you can you can postpone this meeting for 30 minutes, go back to the chambers, have a big old conference call the Elk Grove City Attorney, John Hobbs, and ask him these questions. Have the carriers accepted the City of Elk Grove cell antenna law? He will tell you. Have they sued in federal court? He will tell you. Do we have multiple carriers in Elk Grove? Do each of the carriers, have they asked for and received hundreds of permits since 2019 and installed that many antennas? He will tell you. Do the people in Elk Grove have adequate cell coverage? He will tell you. Find out. I think it would be just really bad if you make this vote on this to approve it today without knowing this can work and it does work and it has worked. I also think you should have a limit on the term of the permit to no longer than 10 years. And there were other recommendations I don't even have time for. But and the thing about substantial evidence contained in the written record.
Thank you.
Excuse me, just for your edification, I talked to the attorneys, and I'll be sharing that later on.
That's great. Thank you.
Anyone else? I see someone else approaching. Greetings.
Can you hear me okay? Yep. Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Kristen Phelan, and I live on Dog Bar Road in Grass Valley, District 2. Cell towers do not belong on our doorsteps. There are other places for them, and yet time and time again, that's exactly where they're built. This is my biggest concern today, the placement of this equipment. I'm now fighting in federal court for the safe and responsible placement of cell towers in our county. But without sufficient updates to our ordinances, these corporations will continue to place their equipment in harmful locations. I have personal experience of what happens when a carrier decides they want to build a tower 100 feet from people's homes. I know what happens when neighbors and county push back to protect people from this. They sue. I'll leave that here, but I would like to discuss my concern regarding the distance between these towers and our homes. The current draft proposes 150% setback for the tower height in residential and rural zones. That's a start, but more is needed. Sufficient setbacks matter for many reasons, including fire safety and protecting our property values. Fire safety. California fires have been started by electrical faults and fuel-fed backup systems. On so many roads in our county, a larger setback is a safety requirement because of the inherent fire risk this equipment poses. In regards to property values, studies consistently show the proximity to cell towers significantly decreases property values and can even render some homes unsaleable. Greater setbacks protect homeowners and preserve the rural character that defines our beautiful county. The county has both the federal and state authority to require greater distances, and we urge the Planning Commission to adopt the stronger absolute footage minimums recommended by Nevada County for Safe Tech. Specifically, the setback table should be updated to require 500 feet from property lines in residential and standard rural zones. These absolute minimums ensure meaningful separation regardless of tower height and provide the kind of clear, measurable criteria that reduce discretionary disputes and protect our property values. The county's own GIS mapping data supports the feasibility of these standards. An independent analysis of the county's ArcMac model, which staff has used to defend against 500 to 1,000-foot setbacks, confirms that more than 50 parcels in South County alone can accommodate 1,000-foot setbacks in certain areas with minimal impact on neighboring residents. The county's own commissioners, you have authority today to write an ordinance that puts people first. I'm asking you to use your existing authority under state and federal law to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to approach? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to close the public comment and take a 10-minute break. So see you guys back at 3:30. this before we ask more questions?
Yeah, we can take a shot at some responses to kind of some of the common themes and comments that we've heard today. And then, of course, if there's anything else you want to ask or drill down on, we certainly can do that. Wanted to touch on a couple of issues. One was the fire review and fire safety. As part of the application process for new cell towers and administrative development permits, everything's routed to our fire planner, as well as the fire district in which the property is located. Defensible space requirements are required for new cell towers. They review the generator location, any batteries, any fuel storage that needs to be located on site in an acceptable way. Sometimes it's on concrete pads. There's different types of protections that are required for those flammable, volatile fuels and batteries. So those, our fire planner and the fire jurisdictions review all of the cell towers and all of the administrative development permits, apply conditions of approval to meet fire safety requirements. There was a comment regarding the removal of a 2-mile separation. That existing language only requires a cell tower within 2 miles that it has to be camouflaged. It's not a prohibition that towers cannot be less than 2 miles apart. It's simply if a new tower is going in within 2 miles of an uncamouflaged tower, that the new tower needs to be camouflaged, and typically that's achieved through a monopine. So that is not an elimination of existing requirement. A number of comments regarding the RF radio frequency reports, as David mentioned in the initial presentation. Currently, we require RF reports to demonstrate compliance with FCC limitations. That's usually done at the time of application. We've added a requirement where we have post-construction, post-installation FCC compliance requirements within 60 days, which is in the ordinance. So we will have the requirement to demonstrate compliance up front with the application, and then once the tower or any new equipment is installed, that report will have to be produced demonstrating RF compliance with FCC limitations.
Brian, in regards to that, is that something that just happens prior and then post-completion, or is there like an annual process that those reports are presented to the county?
There's not an annual or any other time requirements for that. We do have language in the code that says that records shall be maintained, which demonstrates ongoing compliance with FCC exposure regulations and guidelines. Records shall be made available to county staff within 3 business days of the request. So we have language in there if there is a complaint or a concern that a tower is operating out of compliance, that we will request those records to be given demonstrating compliance, or if they're not, we would make sure that it's modified to achieve compliance with FCC limitations.
And then if they, for some reason, if they do get a complaint and they're not in compliance, would that be something that's handled on both the county level through code compliance as well as federal repercussions for that, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have not experienced that, so I don't have an anecdote to explain exactly how that would work, but we would reach out to FCC and we would indicate the complaint, indicate that potentially we had received the reports that they were within compliance or without a compliance. We would verify with the FCC if they agreed with whatever findings we saw, and then it would be probably a coordinated effort with FCC, county, code compliance to ensure that corrections are implemented as soon as possible if there was a violation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Please continue on.
Sure. I wanted to just mention a couple comments regarding application requirements, and denial findings are not included in our ordinance. Again, as David stated, this is not necessarily a standalone ordinance. This is an ordinance that applies to cell towers. There's other portions of our code that contain our application requirements, the processing of applications, the appeal process, as well as denial findings, the process for denying a use permit, what that looks like, the certain findings that need to be made. So those are included in other portions of the code. It's not reiterated in the cell tower portion of the code, but it's all intended to apply and will apply for any type of cell tower application, including the environmental standards, the environmental resource protections, although not specifically called out in this particular section. Those still apply to any new development, any types of permits that are required for construction. We have resource protection standards that would apply. Kind of leads into a comment regarding CEQA exemptions. The code does not identify CEQA exemptions for future towers. The term exemption is from certain permitting types, not necessarily environmental review. All new towers, new facilities go through environmental review. There is a possibility that co-location or some smaller tower modifications or small towers or small equipment and small facilities would be deemed exempt from CEQA, but it's not preempted and determined by the zoning ordinance. It's simply a permitting structure, what permit applies. Certain things are exempt from different discretionary permitting requirements, but everything's subject to CEQA, and on a case-by-case basis, those applications are reviewed, and the appropriate CEQA document is prepared. Sometimes that's a CEQA exemption for minor antenna change-out. A lot of times it's initial study, mitigated negative declaration for a new tower, but those are all done on a case-by-case basis.
And sorry, just for clarification, that environmental review takes place for both projects that are conditional use permit as well as the administrative development permit?
Correct. Typically, administrative development permits are required for small enough projects that are on existing facilities, don't require any new disturbance. So oftentimes those are exempted, but it's not an automatic exemption. If there was some new impact, then we would prepare the appropriate level of document, CEQA document, based on the project itself. There were some comments regarding notification. As we've mentioned, we've tried to increase the noticing and notification of up to 1,000 feet. And in the beginning of the process, we still would do our normal noticing procedures, which would be after the application is submitted. We would do the public notice, as well as David mentioned, for the environmental document at the public hearing. However, if someone feels that they want to be notified for all types of projects or all cell tower projects in a certain area in their neighborhood, they can certainly sign up. We have a little form that can be filled out that they will go on a list and they will be notified of any type of project or a specific type of project within a certain area, within all of Western County, whatever they want to identify, and they will be put on a list for that notification. So if there is a concern that someone may not get notified, they can certainly sign up for automatic notification for certain types of projects. So I wanted to add that. And I'm sure there's other comments. David, did you have anything you wanted to? Okay. We're happy to answer any other questions or respond to other comments we didn't identify here.
Thank you. You're on a roll. Did you have anything else?
I would just for disclosure, a couple months ago I met with the folks from Nevada County for Safe Tech. David, maybe you could explain the communication that you've had with that group. And I know there's kind of a list here of changes to the ordinance that have been based on both public comment and conversations with them, but perhaps you could just explain what the process has been.
This is Commissioner Foley. I can provide some background on interaction with Nevada County Safe Tech Ordinance. The first interaction with some of the members of it was that the kickoff workshop in March of 2025. From there, it's just been mostly through some emails. if they have any questions about wanting to be noticed, the progress of the ordinance and things like that. When the draft ordinance did go out in July and that period went over from August, that's when we got the draft of the Nevada County Safe Tech Ordinance. And that's when we started looking into it to become more familiar with what their proposition is for that. And that was most of it. And in addition, just to the public comments that the community members associated with that group have provided, which have been included with the staff report and the memos.
Just wanted to add, we did take a look at the Safe Tech ordinance. We tried to make some changes and incorporate some of the suggestions and things that were in there as part of the staff report. We also tried to identify the reasons why we felt we couldn't include some of the requested changes. And so that was intended to, I understand a lot of work went into that, and we understand the desire and the passion, but we tried to, again, create a balance of what we felt was legally defensible. I know they believe that their entire ordinance is, and it may be, but we were trying to incorporate the requirements that we felt made sense for the county. This initiative didn't start from, we need to create a cell tower ordinance or we need to start all over. I know there's differing opinions on that. However, the task at hand was to update our ordinance to align with the new technology, FCC requirements, and look for ways to add some added protections for neighborhood from visual impacts by increasing the setback. So that was kind of the charge that we took based on board direction.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to reiterate, I think you hit on it, but I had questions as far as the oversight of the cell towers themselves. So as I understand it, there's pre-studies done, but if there's a complaint, you have to work with FCC regarding, like the one gentleman who said it got added on to and it was just a modification and not a new site, so to speak. How does that process work?
Well, anytime there is an addition, a change out, a modification, or a new facility, we require the RF reports to ensure compliance with the FCC limitations. We have not had an official complaint regarding a tower that was there was concern that it was not within operating limitations. If that were to occur, we would likely contact the cell provider, the tower company, ask for reports on the FCC limitations, the RF analysis, contact FCC to ensure that the proper paperwork, filing, and reports have been submitted to the FCC when they were required, and then address any issues as necessary in coordination with FCC.
Do the telecom companies, Verizon or whoever, do they do RF readings on some sort of regular basis, or is, again, that's just complaint driven? Do they go out annually or anything like that?
I'm not aware. I don't think that they do. Whenever there's an equipment change, that's when we require it, but if nothing's been modified for 5-10 years, the county doesn't require it. I don't think the FCC does, and I doubt the cell tower companies do monitoring, but I can't speak for them.
Okay. And then one last question. Are you aware several people spoke about health problems that they felt were a result of proximity to these towers? Are you aware of any studies that show that?
Looking through the internet, there's all sorts of studies that identify different levels of concerns and health effects all over the world. What we are following is the FCC regulations and the 1996 Telecommunications Act that prohibits counties from making determinations or denials on cell tower facilities based on health impacts, as long as the facilities are operating within the FCC limitations.
Okay, that's all for me. Thanks.
Commissioner Gerst.
Thank you. I want to thank you for letting people know that they can sign up for notifications. I also wanted to let everybody know that there are ways to sign up for agendas before they come out, staff reports, and I would encourage everybody to sign up for those for things that you're interested in, because I think transparency is really important and public participation is critical. So thank you for that. I also would love to encourage the county to include KVMR and UBANET in their notification practices. I think that's a great suggestion. So I imagine that would be pretty straightforward to do. On top of that, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. The one was, what role does the FCC play in application reviews? I mean, obviously, these are really technical applications. You mentioned that you receive the RF exposure reports and that they go to the FCC for review. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. FCC has their own permitting procedure for towers. Part of it's ensuring that they're consistent with their NEPA requirements. There's National Historic Preservation Acts that FCC is doing, so they have their own requirements. And a lot of the FCC requirements are more in depth, like they will regulate the actual energy levels that the antennas can regulate within, because they're also concerned about one tower being too powerful and creating interference with other towers. So in terms of the radio frequency emission regulation, it's much more an FCC thing that they're looking into than we are, because it's more within their authority to do so.
And is that application process separate from the county application process? So the companies need to get FCC approval in addition or in conjunction with our county approvals?
They have to do both. They need their land use entitlement, and then that's where we're making sure they have their setbacks and their neighborhood compatibility and things like that too. But they also have all the FCC requirements that are related to actually emitting the antennas and the energy they can do and the spectrum they can be in and things like that.
Are some of the requirements that the FCC mandates in line with any of the additional documentation that Nevada County Safe Tech are requesting we add to our reviews, or are they different? Do you know?
I don't know if they're, the only thing where they kind of can relate that I was concerned about, and one of our reasons for not bringing in the specific methodology for the RF testing, because that methodology is something that the FCC is looking for. And if we add a specific methodology, there was some concern that we'd be conflicting with those federal requirements. But there are different shock clocks and different federal requirements that we looked at in the Federal Code of Regulations to make sure our ordinance was in alignment with. And there may be portions of the Safe Tech ordinance that have that, but I just don't know for sure.
Okay. Is there any part of the applications that are so technical in nature that it's difficult for staff to review? And has there been any consideration into sending those out to third-party reviews that are beyond the FCC?
The things we look for under the existing ordinance and the proposed ordinance are similar to many other land uses we're looking for, like setbacks, aesthetics, CEQA compliance, avoiding impact of natural resources. The only thing that's really unusual about the cell towers is the radio frequency emissions, and that's why we're relying on those reports from the electrical engineers that are the third-party electrical engineers that are certifying these towers, who are also preparing these reports that go to the FCC that have a more strict scrutiny of that report.
Okay. In terms of monitoring, is that something that was discussed in this process and made a determination not to include it for any reason, or yeah?
Yeah, there was some consideration of that. We looked into it. We looked at some of the other RF reports we had got. We reached out to Verizon and got their thoughts on it as well. And based off the language of those RF reports we were seeing, they're testing those towers and the antennas at what the capacity of them are. They do the worst case scenarios where they got all the antennas running at the maximum power to the antennas. And so they want to do that because it gives them some flexibility where they're not going to exceed their limits. And it also if they're able to do that, it's not like they have some option just to twist a dial and turn it up to more than they were certified for. Where it would get another round of review is if they're modifying antennas or they're adding additional antennas, and then those new antennas would be likely reviewed at that same capacity.
In terms of the setback distances, was there any review or discussion around varying those setback requirements based on zoning district?
We do have some varying setbacks based off of zoning districts. The industrial has a lower setback, and the towers aren't allowed in R1 at all. But other than that, it's all treated consistently, because a lot of those other zoning districts, like the ag and the forest, which is probably the most common zone districts in the county, those are all rural zoning districts, so we treat them all the same.
Okay. I mean, yeah, okay. TPZ has a different zoning setbacks than FR. I mean, there's examples of other districts that there's some nuance to, right? So maybe that's something that we could look into. Beyond that, I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Commissioner McIntyre.
Well, you know I'm not shy, so I'd like to ask the Verizon person, can I get a question answered from you if you don't mind? Come on up for a second if you have the... I'm interested in these small cell units. And I don't know if we have any in this community. Do you know that? Do you know?
I don't know if we have any small cells right now.
And so what is a small cell, and where is it mainly used? Is it mainly used in more urban areas, or give me some understanding of this small cell?
It can be used in urban areas. The way I like to describe it is if you have a hill with a light on top of it and you have a city down below and that spotlight shines down, you're going to have some shadows on the opposite side of that light source, right? So the small cells work in an urban environment really well like that to fill in those shadowed areas. I would say in a mountainous environment, we use a lot of those on windy roads that don't have direct line of sight because of macro facility, well, all wireless facilities, they need direct line of sight. So if you're on a windy mountain road, one facility is going to, the signal is going to stop really quick, right? So we'll use the, if it's available, we'll use the existing telephone poles or PG&E to put them along the road all the way up your route. That's another use for like a mountainous environment.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else have a question? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Graham, I think it is. Could you come up for a second? Sorry. Now, I talked to the city attorney from the city of Elk Grove, and he acknowledged that they have had no lawsuits or whatever else. And you, I gather, were very involved in that adoption of that ordinance. And is that ordinance, have you seen the ordinance in relationship to our ordinance? Have you seen the relationship to the Elk Grove ordinance in relationship to the Nevada County Safe Group?
I was very involved in it. I led the grassroots campaign in 2018. And
Yes, he said that he didn't know if you were pleased with him or still holding grudges. So,
at the time they approved it, I thought they had not done enough because they hadn't given us everything that we asked for. But the more I looked at it, and I said, by the way, the idea for what I call the front yard rule for cell antenna placement, it was not our idea. We found out in the week, 2 weeks prior to the final meeting where the council voted on it, August 28th of 2019, we met with each of the 5 council members, and one of them was Pat Hume. He's currently on the Board of Supervisors in Sacramento County. And so we sat together in the City Hall conference room, and I said, Councilmember Hume, I was really glad to see this thing in the proposal. And he said, that was my idea. So he had mentioned it to our city attorney, John Hobbs, as a way to strike the balance.
So the question is, sorry,
Okay.
the question is there, have you looked at the Nevada County ordinance and enough to be able to say it somewhat mirrors Elk Grove or is not as restrictive as Elk Grove or what?
I have to say I'm not very familiar with the Nevada County ordinance.
And how about with the cell people here from Nevada County? Anything, or you're just responding to, gee, Elk Grove did a great job? Because we got a lot of paperwork from you.
Right, yes, and I hope I didn't overdo it. You know, if I had, all the notes that I brought up to the lectern.
Well, thank God we have a lot of trees in this county, so.
Thank goodness.
Because you took out a few.
Well, some of them I took out on June 3rd and August 8th, and I was hoping that by taking those trees out, you would have my information at the time. I'm not very familiar with the Nevada County ordinance,
Okay.
but when they say the name of the attorney who is...
Scott, somebody.
Scott McCullough. He is a genius. You could not hire a better attorney. And for him and Children's Health Defense to have prepared something for your county, I mean, I would consider it as a gift, and I would not turn it down unless there was a real strong reason. Yes, I'm not very familiar with the Nevada County residents.
That's okay. You helped immensely. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Is that all?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you. So, David, you and I have had a chat on this, and I must, for public notice, I also had a chat with Johanna and Renette throughout the course of the last 6 months or so. And we chatted, David, and I was interested in the idea of how you came up with this ordinance. So you looked at Placer and Yuba and all these other counties. Were those ordinances recent? I mean, we're looking at ours at 20 years old. Are those pretty recent?
Some are more recent than others. I think our 20-year-old one was probably older than a lot of the ones I looked at. I'd look at a Los Angeles one that was nearly brand new. I believe the Yolo County ones are a few years old. I basically just looked at everything in the whole area just to get a sense of what everyone is doing in these other communities, whether they're rural or not.
So we also talked about, you know, I think we're all up here in a balancing act today, okay? We believe, obviously, in public safety, but we also believe in private enterprise and people who are wanting cell service in this community. So there's a balance here that we're trying to deal with. And so I think the public is really asking for more testing of these cell units. And so we talked about somebody's advertising one of these units that you put on the tower, and it's constantly monitoring it. I've got to believe that there are these types of these types of monitors out there, so that the public and you and they can tune into Nevada County Planning and see what the tower up on Banner Mountain's shooting out these days, or taking in, or bouncing off. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it seems like a good idea. There's a couple concerns I have, and I also wonder about the necessity of it. One of the concerns I would think about is how many competitors are in that market, and whether, even if we don't call them out by name, even if they're the only ones that provide that service, we're really just directing all of the cell companies to have to use that one entity. The other thing I would think about is if they're testing all these tower equipment at 100% of the capacity and it's not changing, then they can't go over physically because they've already tested the antenna to its capacity when they did the RF report.
So who's the they that's testing those towers?
It would be like a third-party consultant.
So a third-party consultant is whatever he does to monitor this and says, turn it up full blast. Is that what he's saying? Is that what's happening?
That's what they state in all of the reports that I've read so far for the cell towers we've had in the county.
Okay. And the only other overview of this happens to be the FCC, who, because you don't know I don't know how to read these things, you don't know how to read these things, so it goes off to the FCC. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And the FCC, wants them to follow some sort of methodology. They have one, it was an OET 65, which is a pretty common one. They're not regulated to follow it, but most of them end up following that anyways, or some other similar method where they can demonstrate what they've done, will reliably demonstrate that the towers have met the FCC standards.
Okay, and then I understand if Verizon puts up a tower at 100 feet, let's say, then T-Mobile wants to come in and they get the rights to be able to put on a tower on that tower. Is that correct? Because it's a co-locator that they're going to be able to rent from Verizon part of that tower. Is that what I understand?
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct. Some of the times those towers are owned by like a tower company, like Vertical Bridge or Crown Castle, where their business model is to rent it out to the different cell companies. But sometimes they'll have like an anchor tenant. Like with Crown Castle, the anchor tenant is usually T-Mobile, and with Vertical Bridge, the anchor tenant is usually Verizon. And in our county code, we actually encourage co-location because it's less towers, and we're kind of aggregating them together, and ideally it's less disturbance and less of the other impacts from towers. When anyone's doing any of the modifications, the FCC is looking at the modification to ensure it still meets RF, and with our code amendments, we're looking to see some demonstration that any installation or modification meets RF standards as well.
So when T-Mobile has their tower and we've approved it or whatever, and then let's just say AT&T comes along and says, well, we want to co-locate. So does that mean that they're adding to the height of the tower?
They could do it in a few ways, and it would still be an eligible facilities request. They could add some extra, they're called like T-arms, or they kind of make it a little bit wider. They could go up to 20 feet in width, and it would still be an eligible facilities request. They could do 20 feet in height from the next nearest antenna, but sometimes when they just design these towers, they already just have enough space as they are, and they probably just go up there and mount it to the arm that already exists, and they don't have to do the heavy construction because they probably anticipate that when they design it.
And so let's just say, I don't know what the numbers are, but let's just say that the first tower was for 100 radio waves, whatever it is, 100. And then the next one comes in and says, well, we want 100 too. So now we have 200 in our sphere, supposedly, within that, and you could get a third. How many can you put up there? Do you know?
I think there's a engineering limit on the tower of the weight that it can support.
But there's not a limit on how many waves go on?
I mean, that would be part of the RF emissions too. So there's a few different things limiting it. There's the physical lease area where you only have so much room for cabinets without expanding your lease area. They can expand it a certain amount. There's limitations of radio frequency compliance, so they can't exceed the FCC standards. And there's also the engineering threshold of the tower too.
Okay, so now this company has put up a tower, and it's 10 years from now, and we now have better technology, and now the fact is that they want their stuff up higher, up on the Sierras or whatever. And so all of a sudden we have that, let's just say that tower down there on Maltman that everyone knows. And all of a sudden that tower now is obsolete. What happens at that point?
What we've been doing and what we will continue to do is, enforce our facilities and maintenance agreement as a condition of approval of all of the use permits. We require that they maintain the towers in the condition they were approved for, and if they abandon it, the tower has to be removed within 12 months.
How do you know that they've abandoned it? I mean, the one thing about radio wave stuff is you can't see it, you can't touch it, it's just there. So the Maltman Tower stands there, and I don't know the incentive for Verizon to phone you up and just say, oh, just to let you know we abandoned this tower.
We have seen, I've approved building permits for the demolition of towers. So they do demolish their towers and they replace them with bigger ones.
But there's no requirement in the code that we're asked to adopt relative to it other than them informing you. Is that correct?
Yeah, other than them following the rules, yeah.
Let's talk about, because the lady from Banner Mountain was interesting, of how many towers can be close to one another. So if I'm in a neighborhood, I can imagine Banner Mountain's a very popular neighborhood to put towers. What's the code regarding how many towers that they can put in regarding this new code as compared to the old code?
I'll take that. There's no real change to the amount of towers. There's no tower limitation currently.
Is there a tower distance between? No.
No. We encourage co-location. Generally, the cell company that contracts with the cell tower company to build it, they're going to take the top and the best location. The other co-location, they may be able to use some of the same arms at the same height. Generally, they have to be located lower on the tower. And so potentially a tower would not meet the needs of a co-location, so a new tower would need to be built. Generally, we see towers that are either multiple towers on one site, or they're approximately 1 mile to 2 to 3 miles away from each other, but there is no limitation in our code currently or proposed that would dictate separation requirements for towers.
So I mean, if I were Banner Mountain, I'd be concerned. Does that cause any concern to you? Because I just know, or Cement Hill or something. It's just, you moved up there because it's beautiful in the trees, and all of a sudden you didn't realize, my God, I didn't know we were the center of cell towers.
I think there's multiple towers on top of Banner Mountain that serves the location.
But there's no different requirements from that to this?
No.
Go ahead.
Can I add on to that? Because
Please.
that was one of the questions I missed here, was there's a parameter for alternative sites locations in the application, is that correct?
Right, it's an alternative site analysis.
And so, and then there's the coverage maps that are required as well. So there is a burden put on the cell companies to make the case that a new tower is required.
They have to demonstrate that there's a coverage gap and that the either new tower or the co-location or the new facility would fill that need in their coverage maps, yes.
And have there been applications that have been denied based on lack of information or supporting information from the cell company or the
The most recent one was the cell tower on Dogbar Road that one of the commenters mentioned today. That one was approved at the zone administrator hearing, appealed to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors denied it. And now the county is being sued for that denial in federal court.
Okay, thank you.
So I know in the planning code in the past and other issues, there's a hierarchy, meaning that we encourage you to put your cell towers in industrial zones, let's just say. And the last one is something as close, one above R1 or R2 or something else. And so, but what we're saying in this ordinance is you can put your we encourage you to put your cell tower wherever it's going to work best for you, but that may not be what's best for the community. So there's balancing of, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we gave them better points if they put it into industrial zones as compared to R2 or some other type of zone?
It really comes down to whether they can design the project to meet all of the site design standards, and that may be more of a challenge in certain situations. There's just some areas that are more inherently compatible with camouflaging a tower and having it fit in a little bit better.
Now, I also understand that you can, if you put a cell tower up and it's got the plastic tree on it, that then you can put less, what are they called? Co-locators. So is that true that there was a letter in here saying that what we're doing is by putting up these cell towers with plastic all over the place, that we're encouraging more cell towers with plastic compared to we'd have less if we just had a pole up there, a brown pole. Do you understand my question? Sorry, maybe not.
I think I do.
Okay.
We've never had a concern regarding the fake foliage limiting co-location or antenna. They would potentially remove some of the branches, if you will, and replace them with antenna arms. But I've never heard that in working with cell tower companies.
Repeating something said in there that there's less stuff can be put on the tower because of the plastic.
Yeah, usually the antennas are not blocked by the foliage. They stick out just as far or slightly further, or there's a hole in the foliage for the antennas to operate through.
I love the word foliage, yeah. Anyway, and I see that there's some requirement that a neighbor can say there's plastic all over the ground and ask for code compliance relative to that. Is that as you put it in there?
That's correct. That was in addition to this amendment to try to resolve some of those concerns about the plastic litter and monopine foliage that's been on the ground.
And David, this is a subjective question for you. How would you say, in relationship to our neighboring counties, your ordinance is on the restrictive side to the least restrictive side relative to the towers?
Relative to the towers, we're probably more on the restrictive side just because of the setbacks. I have this table that I just put on the screen right now showing some of the setbacks from our county and some of the other counties. So we're definitely more restrictive with the proposed ordinance than the surrounding counties. A lot of the language of our ordinance is pretty similar to the language just in general to a lot of these other ordinances I've looked at.
And what about the small cell towers, or whatever, small cells?
In regard to small cells, because we're proposing that they're exempt, we're less restrictive than some of the other counties. But some of the reasoning for that is because we are a mountainous community, and we'd like to have them, potentially along those existing power poles on the roads.
Okay. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, a couple more questions. Can you put the slide back up about the exemptions? I think maybe we just went through that, but.
Yes, yes, Chair, I'll put it up right now.
Thank you. No. It's just, it's one of his early ones. There you go. There. No. Yeah, exempt projects.
Oh, okay.
Right? So the small cell, are the ones we just talked about, right? And why they're exempt?
Yes.
And so which of these that are on this list are exempt because it's required by the FCC that they be exempt?
The bottom two, the state and federally exempt facilities and the over-air reception devices, we could potentially do replacement of existing equipment with similar equipment with an ADP as an eligible facilities request.
Because I think what I heard most out of the public comments was the accountability, right? That it started out as one thing, but then that they replaced the equipment, and then it upgraded and upgraded and upgraded. And I wonder how we like potentially what you just said, like where we're starting to limit that possibility.
We still have to issue building permits for when they will change out the antennas. And so typically when we're looking at the building permits, we can see that they're replacing one antenna with a modified version of that same antenna. And so the tower isn't really physically changing. The only thing that's really changing from that change out that we're doing the building permit for is the radio frequency emissions. So where then that gets captured would be the FCC reviewing that radio frequency emissions. And also in that memo, if it's not already in there, we can also add a line that would clarify that even replacing equipment with similar equipment would still need to demonstrate RF compliance by providing it to the county.
Right, that seems reasonable. So going back to the testing, we talked about if somebody is going to put their equipment on a co-location, then they're going to bring out the electrical engineer and they're going to crank it up to 11 and come up with their report. But if it's a co-location, does it build on it? Like, do they crank up all the equipment that's on that co-location at the time?
Yes, Chair. In the code, we wrote for the cumulative RF impacts of the tower.
Okay. You said that they do reports regularly and those go to the FCC, but that the county only sees them when they request them. So you request the report initially, or you request the report, I guess now we're going to say, when we're replacing equipment. Are there other regular requests every year, every 3 years, anything like that?
There's not any annual compliance reports that I'm aware of. It's not from a county level. I don't know for sure, but I don't believe the FCC has an annual compliance report like that because it's operating on the assumption that if those towers were at the worst case scenario and they're not changing the antennas, then it shouldn't put the emissions over what their limit would be.
So do you know the equipment, like Like if it's broken, does it release more of those? Or are we talking about something that can leak? Or is it more that it has this much capacity and if it's broken, it doesn't emit?
I don't know for sure. I'm just not familiar enough with radio frequency emissions. But I would think if the antenna is broken, it's probably not offering as good coverage and they'd probably want to fix it.
Do you have something to add to that in the back, Verizon person? Yes, please. Yeah, and then just when he's finished, yeah.
All the sites are monitored 24/7. So if a site goes down, if there's an antenna, a radio, something like that that's broken, we'll know about it immediately, and we'll send out one of our techs to fix that. To your question about something that would leak out, there's nothing that can leak. This is just electricity that's converted into electromagnetic energy through a wave. So there's nothing physical that leaks out if something's to break that's encapsulated in anything.
Okay, so it's not like, oops, it's broken, and so more of it is flooding out in some sort of way. Like there's not a regulator on that keeps it to the level that it's supposed to be at. It either does it or it doesn't do it.
No, that's a great question. It does not. You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Did you want to?
I would like to add something about the FCC in particular. The reality is that they do not regularly review the radio frequency exposures at all. So it really is up to the county to do it.
Right, which is the conversation we're having. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I heard was that in an emergency, how do our local responders know who to contact or what's on site there? But Brian, did you say that they did know that they do have that kind of information about each of these sites?
Yes, because they review all the applications for all the equipment and changeout, so they're aware of if there's a generator, if it's gas-powered, diesel-powered, battery-powered, those types of things. So I don't know what their filing or checking system is, but they have the initial applications and the approval letters that show the site plans with the appropriate equipment. Did you want anything? I know our CAL FIRE fire planner, they pay very close attention to the cell towers for two reasons. One, because if there is an emergency, they want to protect those cell towers to keep them operating for communication purposes. And then on the flip side, to make sure that they are not, causing the fire or the emergency in the first place. So they're very aware of the type of cell tower, the location of those cell tower for both those purposes.
Do cell towers have the functional equivalent of a fire life safety alarm system?
I don't know all the details of the warning systems involved. As the Verizon representative just mentioned, apparently they keep close tabs on how the towers are operating, but I don't know the specifics of that.
Just curious. Thanks. And I'm assuming that none of these permits actually sunset in the way that if I built a building, I wouldn't sunset my permit and have to take it away.
That's correct. The permits, use permits, ADPs, they all run with the land, and then they don't require any renewals or updating. If they're modified or if they're abandoned, they need to be removed, and then that permit would be null and void at that point, but that would be the only case.
How tall are most of the towers?
Just anecdotally, we've approved that I can recall in the 20 years I've been here. I think the shortest one we approved was 48 feet, and the tallest one we approved, I think, was 199 feet.
Is there a limit? 200?
200 is usually the limit for FAA requirements. They have to have lights and other parameters on them if they go over 200 feet. So I've not seen one proposed over 200 feet. I don't believe we have any in the county.
So if we currently have 30, and then we have another, 7 or 9?
7.
So whatever that is, an additional 25%. Are there any of those applications that would be particularly controversial?
Yeah, I would say that we've heard from neighborhoods of a couple of them at least that are concerned about many issues, but the cell tower in general, yes.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, let's open it up for discussion.
Well, I think the one big problem we have is we're dealing with a 20-year-old ordinance that's quite antiquated. And one of my other concerns is that I wish there had been meetings between the SAFE community, the whatever Nevada County SAFE. What's it called, Johanna?
Nevada County for Safe Tech.
Okay, the Safe Tech community and the planning department, knowing that they were the leading opponents, or not opponents, the leading knowledge base in the county, that I wish that the two sides had gotten together and had some chance to chat and share. And so I think that's a problem for me as a person who I think the public has a really important role, and this group has gone above and beyond to elicit response. And so I'm leaning, I'm just speaking to speak, so I'm waiting to hear my fellow commissioners. I really believe we should pass the ordinance today because I want cell towers to be held to a higher standard, but then I want the Safe Tech people to have the chance to sit down with the planning department and see where there's some more common ground, instead of just allowing, well, we sent it to you and you didn't respond or whatever else. That there needs to be some dialogue towards this. Steve?
If I may ask, did you not say you had dialogue with them, David?
Yeah, I've spoken to them on the phone, through email. They've sent me public comment letters that I looked at. I reviewed their Safe Tech ordinance pretty carefully because I could tell they put a lot of work into it. So I probably read through it and took everything I could from it that I felt like we could feasibly do.
Was their draft ordinance reviewed by our county council for FCC compatibility? By any chance?
Yes, we've had a chance to review it for FCC compliance, and it's compliant.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. It's what?
Yeah, we had a chance to review it for compliance, and it is.
It is.
Their draft ordinance.
Oh, the draft ordinance.
That's what we're referring to.
I haven't had a chance to review the entire thing and mark it up against the FCC rules per se. So no, not fully vetted for compliance on their proposed ordinance, but our proposed draft ordinance has been vetted.
Okay, thank you.
So I think I would agree with you, Terry, that I feel like we should pass this today because I think that there are some really important things, particularly the notifications, et cetera, that I think are helpful to make our 20-year ordinance and get those into place now. Like, I think the current ordinance on the table is better than the one that we are working with. And like most ordinances, I think that we could probably tighten up a piece here and a piece there. We've already started to talk about those, about the exemption of the existing equipment, like we could set that aside. And there's probably some other things that if we really fine-tuned, we could probably make this a really good compromise between what people are looking for and the desire. I mean, I see people even out in the audience on their phones while we're here. So all of us rely on that technology and trying to figure out if there's anything better we could do.
I think I agree with you. I think that's a great compromise. I think given that there's 7 applications and currently if any new applications come in, I think we would certainly want to hold them to these higher setback standards and some of these more restrictive regulations, and doing something today, I think is a positive step forward.
So we're suggesting, recommending to the board that this be approved, that through the planning commission that we're giving our approval today. And you guys are suggesting that between now and this being presented to the Board of Supervisors, the planning department would meet with Nevada County Safe Access to further hash out the ordinance?
I think it would come with a directive to explore additional measures in terms of monitoring
Accountability, abandonment.
And so maybe that's the language we add to our recommendation, is that we recommend that they do further exploration for additional modifications to the ordinance as written once it's after it's been approved?
Yeah, I mean, what we're really saying is that we're approving this, and we don't think we should wait 20 years to rewrite it, right? That we should immediately turn around and see if there's something that's
flagrant.
Yeah. Particularly if we have 30 and now we're going to have an additional 25%, and then, particularly for the accountability, that this is something that we want to get more ahead of.
So David, are those 7 or 8, are they in the pre-application phase? I'm trying to understand where they are, those 7 or 8.
I think 3 or 4 are complete.
Uh-huh.
And then the remaining are still incomplete, waiting upon resubmittal.
Okay.
I think this is a challenge. What we're suggesting is because the work that the county's done here, we're saying, yes, move forward with this, but Board of Supervisors, more information has to be presented, and they're really then voting on something that.
That's actually not what I'm saying.
Today.
I'm saying that, yes, move ahead with this, and supervisors, you should also move ahead with this.
Okay.
And then we should turn around immediately and tighten this. We should do this again very soon.
Okay, I was confused. I
Yeah.
thought this was all
I'm not-
going to
no.
happen between now and the Board of Supervisors.
No, I'm saying that we should get this on the books immediately, and then we should make it better.
Okay.
Let's codify this and then
Is this-
repeat the process.
This is a more stringent standard than what is currently available. So it's a step in the positive direction. And, I think there's, like we said, this is a balancing act, right? We have to find something that works for the community, that people feel safe, but people also need cell service. We're all relying on that technology. I know at my house, I get 0 bars. So without internet access, or if the power goes down, I'm literally without cell service. So I think there has to be a balance. I'm okay with your suggestion, though. I think that's good that it can be further hashed out in the future to make sure that it's a more complete process for.
But soon, I mean, we have to get this done.
And at least.
Because David doesn't want to think about this too much anymore.
And including the modification that was suggested earlier with removing the replacement of existing equipment from the exempt project list, correct?
Yeah, under today's, correct?
Under today's,
Under today's.
Okay, I agree. I think you guys did a great job doing your research. I feel confident you communicated with everybody to the best of your ability. The RF readings were a concern for me, and you explained that a few times, that they were tested at 100% capability, and I guess that's about all you can do. So I think, again, this is a good step forward, and nobody wants a cell tower next door to them, but hopefully the increased setbacks will do the best we can for now.
And what about those, does anybody have any strong feelings towards those 3 applications which are incomplete at this point?
Council, can you tell us where those would stand? Like, is it possible to say those 3 that are still incomplete, can they fall under the new code instead of the grandfathered in on the old?
It's under the purview of the commission as to how they want to treat that, but legally, they could be considered under the new code if they're incomplete at this time. There's some due process and some vested rights issues that might come up with existing complete applications that have not yet been determined approved. But as for those that are incomplete, I think that they are just that, they're incomplete, so that they could be considered under the new scheme.
I think that's fair, considering that it sounds like there's already contention out there in the community that might give the community a little better feeling about the projects moving forward if they are held to a higher standard, seeing as they're incomplete right now.
Okay, so let's add that the ones that are already complete are grandfathered in, and the ones that are incomplete will fall under the new ordinance.
Right, and I also think we need to give David some direction, okay? Instead of let's open the whole can of worms here, that we're really looking at, you helped Joe on that, because you were great on that. So abandonment is one of my issues, what happens to old towers. And also this testing, the
monitoring.
Monitoring, accountability,
And I think-
abandonment.
And I think public access to monitoring records in some capacity, I think, would be valuable just for additional transparency generally. And I think, and accountability, can you spell out maybe a little more specifically what you had in mind?
I think mostly we want to make sure that we don't, I think removing the replacement of existing equipment from exempt is a really good start towards that. But we have heard a couple of totally legitimate horror stories that we want to make sure that we have from other counties, that we want to make sure that we have something in place that we don't have cracks to slip through in terms of, there was the one gentleman who has a
temporary one.
one that is suddenly permanent out in his yard or wherever it is.
Who are you asking to monitor it?
It would be the company would have to put monitoring equipment in place, or it sounds like maybe they even do that already, but maybe those records would need to be made available to the public upon request, public records requests.
Or even just that there's a regular cadence where they are providing that to the county and then it is public, something like that. I mean, we're not looking to drown these guys in tests that are difficult for us to understand, but at the same time that they should be done. And if they're going to the FCC, maybe they also go to someplace here.
Yeah, I think that's great.
So, Brian, how would that be? I mean, we're trying to create some type of cooperation between this group of citizens and your department. How do you see that taking place?
Well, it'll be, your recommendation up to the Board of Supervisors, and then we'll take direction from the board regarding what their final determination is on that. The RF monitoring, as I mentioned, we have language in the code that if we request those reports, that they have to be provided within 3 business days. So we do have that requirement. Those are public record. So if they're requested, they will be available and can be shared with the public. So it kind of sounds like we have that addressed.
I think we have the capability to address that, but I think what we're looking for is a regular cadence that they are being requested.
Okay, we'll have to look at that and what that looks like and
or buying one of those
capability
gizmos.
and workload enabled to do
Absolutely,
that.
yeah.
That'll be, we'll
Yeah,
have to
not
figure
like,
out what that
oh,
looks
that's
like.
what you should do the entire time that you were working is monitor these. That's obviously not what we're trying to do.
Right. So, I mean, I think we'll have to think about exactly what that looks like in terms of different code language or code requirements for what that regular monitoring is. It sounds like the direction is suggesting maybe an annual type of request, unless required to be more frequent based on complaints or other concerns.
Well, I think my question was, I'd like Johanna at least to come, or whoever, to be able to sit down and chat with you and say, these are the real issues. Is there some way that we can massage the county ordinance to meet our notion? Is that an amenable means for you?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
I think we're definitely
That's-
always open to
That's what I think would
comments.
really be beneficial.
Absolutely.
For everyone.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sure.
Chair Millman, briefly, I just wanted to clarify when you were asking about whether or not incomplete applications would be considered, that any ordinance would not take effect until it was adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and then 30 days after that adoption, it would become effective. So that would be the date that you'd be considering whether applications would be complete.
Yeah, understood.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And is that something that the well, I guess we'll get to it. If you guys want to add that kind of language, you can direct staff. Get to that point.
I think we'd want to add that language, correct? That the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would have to be an amendment to the
yeah, so,
recommendation.
so I think, are we ready to put the recommendation up and somebody wants to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we accept the
Well, here,
ordinance.
it's coming up to you, Steve.
Oh.
Sorry, there.
We got
There we
two.
go.
There's
Got-
two.
got- Whoops.
There was two.
Okay. Recommend that the Board of Supervisors find the project statutorily exempt pursuant to Section 15269.c, categorically exempt pursuant to Sections 15061B3, 15301E, 15301B, 15308, 15303D, and 15302, and exempt pursuant to Sections 15162 and 15168 of the CEQA guidelines. Number 2, project action.
I think
No,
these
hang
have to
on,
be
that's-
one
that's
at a
item
time.
one.
So do we have a second?
A second.
Excuse me, how do you vote, Commissioner French?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Aye.
Commissioner McAteer?
Aye.
Commissioner Garst?
Aye.
And Chair Millman?
Aye.
Thank you.
So this is.
So now there's
Now-
a second one.
Now, Joe, Joe, do you want to add some, you want to run with this? No.
Sure.
Let's massage it here.
So do we add the amendment about the incomplete projects?
Here.
Yeah, so we
Here.
we would read this and then with any additional modifications.
Correct.
Okay. So I would make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors adopt the ordinance as amended by the February 26, 2026 memorandum, amending Nevada County Code Title 12 zoning regulations, Chapter 3, specific land uses, Sections 12.03.080, and Chapter 5, administration and enforcement, Section 12.05.060, with the additional modifications that the ordinance shall not apply to complete applications filed before the effective date.
Incomplete.
It would
Oh, sorry,
not,
it would not.
not apply to complete, right?
Yes, you're
okay.
right. Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. And that we would remove replacement of similar equipment from the exempt projects list, and those would be reviewed as an ADP, and direct the Board of Supervisors to further explore additional discussion and monitoring, decommissioning, and what was your term? Accountability of communication tower facility projects.
But I'd like to add with this entity.
No.
No.
You don't want to?
No, I'm not making that motion, no.
You don't want to have it
No.
with this?
They can explore
nonprofit?
it as they need to. They have a ton of information here. If they go through step by step and figure that out, I think it's good practice, but I don't want it in the motion.
I also don't feel comfortable.
I agree.
You aren't ruling them out, you aren't saying they won't.
Right.
But I'm encouraging them to go with that other entity.
You're not having me on board for that one.
Yes.
Why, tell me why that is, if you don't mind.
I think that's overly,
If they want to get hold of them, that's fine, and I'm sure they will.
I think that's overly specific.
I agree.
But you don't want to limit it to just them.
Right.
So I would second Joe's motion.
Can we get a vote?
Yes, your vote, Commissioner French?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Aye.
Commissioner McAteer?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Chair Millman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Excellent. That concludes this agenda item. Thank all of you for participating and spending your time here with us this afternoon. Do we have upcoming information, ongoing updates?
Sure, Commissioners. We are looking to hold a Planning Commission hearing on March 26th. I believe Jodina sent you an email just today, so you may not have seen it, just requesting your availability for that meeting. I believe that is the Sereno project.
Yes, the Hidden Grove Sereno
Hidden
project.
Grove.
And then Commissioner McAteer, I did receive your response that you will not be available on that date.
Okay. The other date that we're looking for is, I believe it's April 9th for 2 items. So we would like to know your availability. You don't have to give it to us now, but if you look at your calendars and let us know if you're available for April 9th, that will be a use permit for an event facility, as well as the safety element revisions that require update every 5 to 8 years.
I will not be here on the 9th.
I'll be happy to look at, respond to the email, I'll take a look at it, look at my calendar.
Okay. Those are the 2 hearings that we're looking at, and we'll keep you posted based on availability of what information we receive, and if we are able to move forward with those dates, or if we need to look at other dates. So we'll wait for your feedback and then let you know if those are a go or if we're going to look for additional dates. I don't think there would be a date prior to March 26. We wouldn't be ready to go earlier than that, I don't believe, for any of the projects. So anything would be later, but nothing until March 26 at least.
Thank you.
That's all I have, unless you have any other questions.
Anybody have any other questions? I think we've done it. All right, let's conclude this meeting.
Thank you.
Very disappointing display of democracy in action.